call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, September 16th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Here.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Here.
Trustee Koopman?
Here.
Trustee Romanello?
Here.
Trustee Stevens?
Here. Before us, we have a consent agenda. Is there any modifications or motion to approve the agenda?
I have a modification.
Okay.
Number 7C. Resolution number 34-2019. I'd like to take that out for discussion. Put it under I just have some questions about that contract.
Okay, we'll be able to answer questions during that.
Okay, great. That'll be fine to leave it there then.
Any other modifications? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0. The first item on the agenda is oath of office. Chief Owens.
Come on in, guys. So while they're coming in and their significant others or whomever they chose to bring show up, so we've hired 4 new officers in the last couple of months. A couple of them have already completed their field training program and they're out patrolling the streets of Monument. A couple others are still in the program and they should be out here in the next couple of months. So wanted to take this opportunity to give them a formal oath of office and introduce them to the community and the Board of Trustees. All right, raise your right hand. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution and laws of the United States of America and the state of Colorado and to the ordinances of the town of Monument, and that I will defend and protect the lives, safety, and property of the people of Monument, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of police officer according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations. Come on in. Visual, pin it on the badge. Hudson's gonna be busy. All right. No stabbing. There you go. Congratulations, sir. Thank you. Thanks, sir. Thanks. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. You guys are free to go. Okay.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Next item on the agenda, proclamation of Creek Week. Mr. Small, is he here with us today?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, sir. Did you have a few comments before we?
Yes, I do.
the
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, trustees. I am Larry Small. I'm the Executive Director of the Fountain Creek Watershed Flood Control and Greenway District. And I'm here this evening to give you an update on Creek Week 2019. You know, this is an activity that was started in 2014 by 625 citizens who came together across the Fountain Creek watershed to do a cleanup on our creeks, trails, parks, anywhere litter might exist that was contaminating our streams. And since that time, it has grown to 2,800 people in 2018, and cumulatively have extracted 84 tons of litter from our communities, streams, parks, trails. So they're to be applauded. This has grown to be the largest citizen-driven cleanup event in the state of Colorado, and has received national recognition. This year, we expect it to grow even beyond the 2,800 people. We expect more than 3,000 out, and we expect to break the 100-ton barrier. Monument has been a partner in this every year since we started, and we thank you for that. You've been a huge participant in this activity. This year, Creek Week is September 28th to October 6th, but we encourage citizens to always be mindful of litter in our communities. And don't wait till just once a year. Do it when you can. Do it each week or every week or every month. Form your teams and go out and collect whatever you can. And that's to the benefit of our waterways and our communities. And as I've said, Monument has always stepped up and done that. Last year, you had 14 people participating and collected 32 bags. This year, I think it's larger than that from what we've seen. If any citizen wants to form a team, we have a website. Go to Fountain Creek Week, that's one string, fountaincreekweek.com, and you'll see a registration procedure on the website so you can register your team. We provide all of the supplies you need to do this, the bags, the grippers, the vests, whatever supplies you need to do it in a safe fashion. We also have training that is given to the team leads so that they can instruct their team members to perform in a safe fashion. We tell you what you should collect, what you should definitely not collect. There's some things out there that is not safe for you to pick up, but just note where they are and report those to the proper authorities. So thank you again for your support in this. It's been tremendous. You've been a big partner for us, and we thank you. We thank the town of Monument for your spirit and collaboration on this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Koopman, would you read the proclamation?
Sure. Proclamation recognizing Creek Week 2019, whereas the town of Monument is fortunate to have extensive and diverse natural resources such as forest, grasslands, riparian areas, lakes, creeks, and a wide variety of open spaces, and whereas the Fountain Creek watershed is unique and an important resource and asset to the residents and visitors of Fountain and the Pikes Peak region, and whereas the Fountain Creek Watershed Flood Control and Greenway District is partnering with the City of Colorado Springs Utilities, El Paso County, Pueblo County, the cities of Manitou Springs, Fountain, and towns of Monument and Green Mountain Falls, along with numerous community organizations to coordinate the 6th annual Creek Week cleanup, which will encourage the protection, restoration, and maintenance of the Fountain Creek watershed. And whereas this 9-day litter cleanup effort kicks off in Fountain Creek Regional Park on September 28th and runs through October 6th, 2019 throughout the watershed, and whereas Creek Week programs and activities are designed to raise awareness about the littering issue within our watershed, to encourage organizations and individuals to collect litter and debris to make Fountain Creek and the watershed cleaner and safer. And whereas businesses, churches, schools, nonprofits, neighborhood associations, youth groups, service clubs, and individuals are encouraged to form a Creek Crew
to clean up at a Creek Week project site, and whereas Creek Week litter removal activities will reduce pollution in our creeks and clogs in our waterways that can lead to flooding, provide for a safer drinking water supply, and enhance wildlife habitat and property values. Now therefore, the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument hereby proclaims September 28th through October 6th, 2019 as Creek Week in the Town of Monument, and encourages our citizens to help protect, restore, and maintain our waterways by participating in Creek Week activities. Proclaim the 16th day of September 2019.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Small.
Thank you.
Arts Month, Mr. Vick. Mr. Vick, we're gonna combine your presentation with your proclamation, so.
Sounds like a wonderful plan.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you again this year. My name is Andy Vick. I'm the Executive Director of the Cultural Office of the Pikes Peak region. We are the local arts agency that serves El Paso and Teller counties, and I am here to talk to you about Arts Month. This is our 6th annual Arts Month initiative. It was National Arts and Humanities Month was started back in the mid-'80s at the federal level. It's observed throughout the country and has been for several decades. We started in this region a Arts Month initiative back in 2014. And everything about Arts Month you can find at peakradar.com/Arts Month. The whole idea is to create more engagement in arts and culture here in the Town of Monument and throughout the region of El Paso and Teller counties. So this is what the Arts Month landing page looks like on Peak Radar. You will be able to see, if you were to scroll down, all of the events that are happening arts and culture-wise during the month of October. Great opportunity to invite your family and friends to go out and have a new experience. We do all kinds of advertising for Arts Month. We use local photography. In fact, the image up in the top left was taken when Gallery 132 did their event out in front of that whole retail complex there, and they had some aerialists there, and that photo was sent to us, and then we have a designer who takes those local photos and turns them into our Arts Month advertising materials. We also produce, as a cultural office, 2 events that I would like to extend an invitation to the community to. On Friday, September 27th, there is a free community event if you're 21 and older. It's called the Artini, and it is all about kicking off Arts Month with a fun showcase of artists from throughout the region. So you're invited to that. It's at the Mining Exchange Hotel in downtown Colorado Springs. We also produce, in cooperation with the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC, the annual Business and Arts Lunch. That's a ticketed event where we celebrate the intersection of arts and business and give out awards and also do some performances. That'll be at the Antlers Hotel on October 10th. We also will do all kinds of advertising by billboards, by print, by radio, by TV. Hopefully you will hear some of that up here in the Tri-Lakes area, because we do invest up here as well. And we have lots of great partners. Last year we partnered with Jody Bliss and her Iron Pour event, and that was a great success. They're doing that again this year, actually, on September 28th. If you haven't been involved, it's a great opportunity to be involved in that. But lots of community support, lots of partners throughout the region that help us to celebrate Arts Month. This is an important part of what I do, is I go to, this year, 8 different, 2 counties and 6 municipalities to obtain an official Arts Month proclamation. Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, when I finish, if Terry's agreed to snap a quick photo of the 2 of us in front of the monument seal there, I would appreciate that. We push those out on social media. It's a great opportunity to connect with our elected leaders, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. Arts Month has been going on for 6 years. It's had a great growth and trajectory. We're expecting over 300 arts and cultural events alone during the month of October throughout the region. So anyone who tells you there's nothing to do in the Pikes Peak region is sorely mistaken. Lots going on during the month of October in particularly, but throughout the year you can find it always at peakradar.com. And why should you care about this? I would say, aside from the wonder that is art in and of itself, there's a huge economic impact, $153.3 million of annual economic impact from the nonprofit arts and cultural sector in this region. If you want to attract and retain workforce, I would throw out to you that a vibrant art scene is important to that. And for those of us who already live in the community, we know that arts is great for education, especially for young children. It's a wonderful way to enjoy our time together, and it's a great way to build community. When there are arts events happening, whether it's Bines and Brews, it's happening next weekend, or the example at the Gallery 132 event, that brings community together. And we need that now more than ever, I believe, and arts and culture is a catalyst to do that. So I think it's very important to our region. And the last thing I'll share with you is that we have currently a 2010-2020 cultural plan, a master plan for the region. That expires at the end of next year, so beginning in January, the Cultural Office is going to be leading a new cultural planning process, and we have representatives from the Tri-Lakes region on that committee, and we will be building the new cultural plan for this entire region from 2020-2030. We will launch it or begin the process in January, and then next year at Arts Month, we will release the new cultural plan for the next decade. So that's a pretty major effort. I'll conclude by reminding you that the Artini is coming up next Friday, the Business and Arts Lunch a couple weeks after that, and I really encourage everyone here, as well as the members of the Board of Trustees, to get out and enjoy the arts that exist in your community and throughout the Tri-Lakes region and the Pikes Peak region as well. It's a great time of year to celebrate arts and culture. So I will answer any questions you may have. I appreciate the opportunity to request a proclamation. And Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind a photo when we finish the proclamation, I'd be greatly appreciative.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Trustee Bornstein, would you read the proclamation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Proclamation recognizing October is Arts Month in the Pikes Peak region, whereas the month of October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by thousands of art and cultural organizations, communities, and states across the country, as well as by the White House and Congress for more than 2 decades, and whereas the arts and humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind, and whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of every American, including those of us living in the Pikes Peak region, and whereas the arts and humanities plays a unique role in the lives of our families, our communities, and our country, and whereas the nonprofit arts industry also strengthens our national economy by generating $166.3 billion in total economic activity annually, 153.3 million annual economic impact in the Pikes Peak region, and by supporting the full-time equivalent of 4.0 million jobs across the nation, 5,070 jobs locally. Now therefore, the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument, Colorado hereby proclaim October as Arts Month in Colorado's Pikes Peak region and call upon our citizens to celebrate and promote the arts and culture in Monument, and to specifically encourage the greater participation by those said citizens in taking action for the arts and humanities in their community, proclaimed the 16th day of September 2019.
Thank you. If you would like to do that picture, we'll do it real quick.
Yep.
Would you like the board member?
Just get the seal in the background, whatever you like.
Okay. Will the board members join me?
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Can you get us all?
You guys ready? Smile big.
Thank you. Thanks again. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
That takes us down to presentation item B, July financial report.
Mayor, Mr. Wingert had to leave in an emergency, so I'll be glad to answer any questions that we have if you have any on that.
Do we have any questions we would like the town manager to pass on to our finance director?
Just please tell him he's done a fabulous job. I love his reporting. Very succinct, very thorough, and very transparent.
You bet. Do you think we could have his report during the next session if he's available? Yes, we could, definitely.
He has been just answering questions, if you
Yeah.
have any questions about the report.
Yeah, it's included in your packet and everything like that, but if you have any questions for him now, he'll be back tomorrow. It just something came up literally 20 minutes ago. Okay.
Mike, one last question, and this pertains to his responsibilities, budget. He was going to work on a preliminary number by which borrowing power for the town.
He's working on that right now.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Any other questions in regards to that? Seeing none, we will move to ordinances. First ordinance is ordinance number 25-2019, an ordinance approving a final plat for Sanctuary Point filing number 6. Ms. Jones.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Excuse me. Ordinance 25, I have several ordinances for you tonight, so you'll bear with me. The first ordinance is a final plat, Sanctuary Point, filing number 6. So this is just a general map to give you an idea of the area we're speaking of. Sanctuary Point is outlined. The filing 6 is here in the middle. It's in the middle of phase 2. It is on the north side of Sanctuary Rim Drive, and it's internal to the site. So it's not bordered by any existing homes in the county. And also an aerial photo sort of highlighting the same area. You'll see phase 1 over on the right side shows all those lots we have. Lots currently platted here in phase 2, and then this is filing 6 in phase 2. So a summary of this project are almost 28 acres, again, internal to phase 2. It's creating 59 residential lots. They range in size from about 9,000 square feet to about 30,000 square feet, fairly large lots. And it also creates 4 tracks and public right-of-way. It is in substantial compliance with the approved phase 2 PD site plan for Sanctuary Point and does meet the code standards. I do have the plat for you. I know these are a little bit difficult to see. This is the southern portion of the filing, just north of Sanctuary Rim Drive. And then the remainder of the lots, and again, extension of the right-of-way, again, further to the north, but not adjacent to the county. Little summary of sort of what this plat creates here. Again, 4 tracks. As you're used to seeing, they provide a variety, or serve a variety of purposes, right? Open space, parks, trails, buffers, landscaping, utilities, drainage, all of those fun things. Again, creating 59 lots and then the public right-of-way. The right-of-way is dedicated to the town and maintained by TriView. And just as a reminder, this project, as well as all of our projects, are sent out for review by a variety of agencies. A few of those are listed for you here, right? Reviewed by El Paso County, our 911 folks, enumerations, the Air Force Academy. There's a note on the plat having to do with the Air Force Academy and its proximity, the Fire District, TriView Metro District, and the utility providers. So this plat went before the Planning Commission in July. There were no questions or concerns that were brought up by the Planning Commission, and actually no one spoke during the public hearing. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval with a 7-0 vote. I do have the recommendation there for you. Planning Commission recommends approval of ordinance 25/2019, Sanctuary Point filing number 6, based on the findings that it complies with all standards and criteria for approval.
Okay, do we have any questions for Jennifer?
I got some emails in regards to this, so a
Okay.
couple of questions in regards to the emails. Do we have, I was counting the exits, are there emergency exits so people are not just stuck with, or at least the one email I got was that there may not be enough exits in case of an emergency?
So that it was determined as a part of the entire Sanctuary Point Phase 2, the exits, the connection to Glen Eagle to the west, right? Sanctuary Rim Drive is built all the way to the west to connect to Glen Eagle. It also extends to the east to Baptist Road. And then there's also an emergency exit to the south.
Okay. And we've talked about this too, there was also concern about water, and so you've talked to TriView Metro. Do they have any issue or concern about being able to deliver necessary water supplies?
No, and that would have all been, if there had been a concern, it would have been addressed as part of the PD site plan. So we're sort of coming back right now as the PD site plan was approved as a whole, and then you've seen filing 4, filing 5, this is filing 6, I believe there's one more filing in phase 2. So no, nothing has been identified as an issue between that time and now.
TriView has done a well serve. Any other questions for Jennifer? Does the applicant have a presentation?
I believe they are here if you have any questions, but no formal presentation.
Okay. This is a public hearing item, so I will open it up to the public for anyone who would like to speak on this item. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion or a motion.
Motion to pass ordinance number 25-2019, an ordinance approving a final plat for Sanctuary Point, filing number 6.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Koopman,
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Romanella.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Ordinance number 26-2019, an ordinance approving the final plat for Connexus Business Park. Ms. Jones?
Mr. Mayor, the next public hearing item is ordinance 26. This is also a final plat. This project is within the Connexus Business Park. So another vicinity map to get our bearings here. This site is located between I-25 and Old Denver Road. This is essentially across the street from the new Wagons West development, which you might see some activity out there just north of the ice rink. This is, oh, I also have an aerial for you. Basically what I just said. Across from Wagons West, again, west of I-25. So this site is about 23 acres. The preliminary PD site plan came before this board in February of 2018. That was a preliminary PD site plan, so you will still see a final PD site plan for any individual lot that develops. The plat that's before us creates 2 lots, 4 tracts, and public right-of-way. The code standards are being met with this plat. So this diagram, just to clarify, is it's shifted 90 degrees, so the north is on the left. It's just easier to show you on the screen that way than the other way. But essentially this plat creates 2 lots, which are shown in the red and purple, lot 1 and lot 2. The public right-of-way is shown in green, and then tract B, which is shown in yellow, would be a future developable lot. So I would anticipate coming back before you with a replat in the future, depending on how that develops as 1, 2, 3, 4, right, potential lots based on size. Tract A, Tract C, and Tract D are not developable. They would remain those tracts. Those are wetland areas and drainage areas. This kind of seems like a lot of color. It's really creating 2 lots, 4 tracts, and the public right-of-way. I just wanted you to kind of get an understanding because it's really just there in the middle that's developable. Again, this plat was sent to the applicable agencies for their review, comments, and essentially approval. No issues have been identified with the plat from any of our agencies. This was also heard at the July 10th Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did ask a few clarifying questions about the lots and future development and the things like that, but there were no major concerns that were identified. No one from the public spoke during that public hearing, and again, the Planning Commission did recommend approval with a 7-0 vote.
Okay, questions for Jennifer from the board?
Jennifer, could you just go back to the track picture? I just had a question, just so I understand. So what I hear you saying is tract A, D, and C are undevelopable, that's open, where only tract B would be? Or did I misunderstand you?
No, that's correct. Tract A, Tract C, and Tract D serve as open space, drainage, wetlands, things like that, so they won't be developed.
Okay.
But I just wanted to let you know that you would likely see Tract B at some time in the future, whenever the property owner had potential users. It's proposed as a tract right now because they don't know how big the potential lots would be.
Okay,
So I would expect that.
so that could be lot 3, 4, 5, or it could be any, it
Right.
just stays tract till you define it.
Correct.
Okay.
But before it was built on, it would have to be replatted into a lot.
That's answered my question, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Jones?
Yes, there's a trail going through there. What I'm kind of like, if it turns sideways, which side is the trail on? Is that trail going to be affected in any way?
So the trail would be sort of at the bottom of the screen, adjacent to Old Denver Road. And yes, the trail, there will be one crossing of the trail. It was addressed as part of the preliminary PD site plan, but it will be further addressed and finalized as part of a final PD site plan, whichever one comes first. And we have worked with the county parks department. They will ultimately approve the design of the improvements necessary for the crossing in terms of signage, and all of that type of thing in terms of the actual crossing.
Okay.
Does the applicant have any presentation, or
I don't believe they have an official presentation, but they are here if you have questions for them.
do we have any questions for the applicant? Okay. This is a public hearing item, so I will open it up to anyone in the public that would like to comment on this item. I will bring it back to the board for further discussion or a motion.
I motion for ordinance number 26-219, an ordinance approving a final plat for Connexus Business Park, filing number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes. That motion passes 7-0. Ordinance number 27-2019, an ordinance approving final plat site for Peak Equipment Solutions. Ms. Jones?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance 27, so this is a final PD site plan. Rather than a plat, this property has actually already been platted. So for this item, we are discussing what is platted as Lot 4 of the Wolf Business Park. It is highlighted in yellow on this aerial photo, and the address is 2124 Wolf Court. So it is between Wolf Court and I-25. If you will recall, we have seen development on Lot 7 in Wolf Court. This is Tri-Lakes Collision. And the other lots remain vacant. So a summary of this project, the site is a little over 2 acres, and they are requesting a final PD site plan for an equipment rental business. So this would include a building, a fenced storage yard, parking, landscaping, and those types of typical improvements. This is an allowable use within the Wolf Business Park plan development. And again, the code standards have been met. So what they're proposing is about a 6,000 square foot building. This would be a combination of office, warehouse building. Again, a screened storage yard for certain equipment that has to be stored outside. Some of it will be stored inside. I want to talk a little bit about the fencing that they're proposing, and I have a couple photos for you and a physical example because we're pretty excited about the screen style fencing that they've proposed for this project. We think it's a sort of setting a new standard up there. So we'll get a little bit more to that. And then they're actually doing a lot of pretty extensive relocation of the existing trees up there. So there's some pretty significant pine trees and things like that, and so they're proposing to move those, be able to utilize them, just put them in the area that makes the most sense. So I'll show you that on their landscape plan. And actually with the use of their screen style fencing and their trees, most of their site will be screened quite well. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the building and then we'll get to that fencing. So I have a couple elevations for you, and then I do have a color rendering. So the it is a metal building, but they have done a pretty good job of including some sort of upgrades, some nice features that will make it attractive, including some color banding along the top, the addition of some windows. They have some decorative awnings, which you can see. This is actually the north elevation, which would face the adjacent lot. And then they do a variety of colors as well. So the Wolf Court elevation, this would be the west elevation, which would be essentially their front. Again, quite a bit of windows and glass, a variety of coloring to do some interest there. And then they obviously do have the bay doors, which makes sense for their business. The east elevation, I will make a side note that signage is not approved as a part of this, but they are showing that on there for you as example, right? The signage would still go through our regular sign permit process. Again, additional bay doors. This side would actually be enclosed within the screen style fence. And then their southern elevation, which has the least features, but I think when I show you the actual site plan, you'll see it's actually screened quite well. But they do have some color banding along the top which would be the portion of the building which would be potentially be visible. So a little bit of a color rendering. They are proposing a fairly neutral color palette, taupes and browns and things like that with some yellow accents, which I think would be quite attractive for an industrial building in this area. So the site plan, again, as I mentioned, the building is shown in yellow. And again, then the fenced area would be on the right of your screen, or to the east side. And then they are keeping and relocating a huge amount of trees, which we're really appreciative of them doing that. And as you'll see with all the trees proposed there on the south side of the site, I think that's going to serve as some really great screening. So the fencing that they're proposing is a screen style fencing. Actually, I do have a sample to pass around to you, and this is the actual sort of material that it would be. We're really excited to see the applicant propose this. It has a much better life in terms of maintenance than like a wood style, cedar style fence. But it also provides some architectural interest as opposed to the slats that we've seen in the past, or some other type of screening. So we think that this will be, again, add some interest to the site, also serve to screen the site, and my understanding from the applicant is it also serves as a sound barrier as well. So we're really excited to see that as a new type of fence here in town. So I do have a couple examples of it shown just in various applications. For me, it was a little bit hard to picture what that would look like as a fence, so I appreciated these photos. So it's becoming pretty popular. It looks like a masonry style fence, but it's actually much more durable. Again, this project, like the others, was sent to the applicable agencies for their review and comment. There were no concerns or issues that have been identified with this project at this time. So this item was also heard before the Planning Commission in July. The Planning Commission asked several questions about what type of equipment would be rented, and then we talked quite a bit about the fencing. But again, no significant issues came out of that discussion, and no one from the public spoke. So again, I sound like a record up here. Again, the Planning Commission recommended 7-0 for approval of this project. Ordinance 27. The applicant is here. I'm not sure if they would like to speak, tell you a little bit about themselves and about the project, or certainly if you have any questions for them.
Do we have any questions for Jennifer before we move?
I just had one question, comment. Jennifer, I think that the fencing is like A+. Is this something that the town might look at as a new standard moving forward with people coming into the town?
Absolutely. We were really excited to see it. I can't wait to see it go up. But I think the potential low maintenance of it and lifespan of it is really exciting. So absolutely, we would look at it. It's allowable, but perhaps we could take out some other things and encourage it.
Yeah, I mean, I applaud the business for going far beyond the call of duty, so thank you for that.
Any other questions for Jennifer? Okay, would the applicant like to add anything at this point?
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? Yes, ma'am.
Does this fencing go all the way around the property, or just on one wall, one side street?
3/4 of the property does not encompass the front.
Okay, right.
It starts at the west side or east side of the building, back and then across I-25.
Well, I think it's an exceptional product. I'm really thrilled that you're using it. It is a great improvement. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a clarification question on this particular slide. The little black dots are current trees that are being moved, or they might not even be black, but
Yes.
okay. Any other questions from the board for the applicant? This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion or motion.
Motion for ordinance number 27-2019, an ordinance approving a final PD site plan for Peak Equipment Solutions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Romanella?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Brings us to ordinance number 29-2019, an ordinance authorizing the exchange of deeds between the town, Nathaniel and Jennifer Brady, to clarify and affirm the, what's it? Oh, did I? Oh, excuse me. Ordinance number 28-2019, an ordinance approving the preliminary final PD site plan for Home Place Ranch. Ms. Jones. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one more ordinance for you tonight. Ordinance 28, 2019. This is a preliminary / final PD site plan for Home Place Ranch. Let's talk a little bit about that. So, Home Place Ranch as a whole is located south of Higbee Road, north of the Promontory Point and Homestead at Jackson Creek neighborhoods. We are talking, and west of Higbee Estates, essentially west of Sanctuary Point. We are speaking tonight specifically about Phase 1, which is the southern portion of the site. You would likely see future phases for the northern portions sometime in the future. So just to put the size in perspective, again, the area that we're speaking of tonight, Phase 1, is about 130 acres. The remainder of the site, the rest of Home Place Ranch, future phases, is about another 300 acres. And as a reference point, Sanctuary Point as a whole is about 460 acres, so somewhat comparable. So a little bit of history. I have a few more slides on this one than the previous ones. So a sketch plan, the property was annexed, zoned, PD, and a sketch plan was approved back in about 2006. So just as a reminder, a sketch plan is conceptual in nature, right? It sort of generally shows the uses, land uses, densities if it's residential, open space, and major roadway connections. It's not a specific plan in general, right? That's sort of what the sketch plan is supposed to do. So the sketch plan that was approved back then allowed for about 990 units, including what would be what's proposed now as Phase 1 would include about 400. So it was a pretty big development that was approved a number of years ago. So again, tonight we're only talking about the southern portion, which includes an extension of Glen Eagle Drive from the south, coming up from Promontory Point, connecting to Sanctuary Rim Drive to the east through Sanctuary Point. This proposal tonight, Phase 1, does not include a Glen Eagle extension all the way to Higbee Road. We would absolutely see that in the future. The traffic studies and things like that didn't warrant it for Phase 1. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of complications going north. Quite a few things to work through in terms of mouse habitat and things like that, and coordinating with the county and the access points and alignments and things like that. So that's not a part of the proposal tonight. Only the extension up to essentially what would be a roundabout with Sanctuary Rim. This is a photo from July when we had the Planning Commission meeting looking west from the new extension of Glen Eagle Drive to the north. I just wanted to show this this is the flattest part of the property with the fewest amount of trees and things like that. When you get to that north side, it's actually pretty heavily forested. There's some more topography and things like that. The southern portion is quote unquote the easier portion, and so I just wanted to show a little bit of that. So summary of the project, again, I've mentioned this Phase 1 is only about 130 acres of the overall 430 or so. So what the applicant is proposing is about 300 residential units in Phase 1, as well as 12 tracks and then the public right-of-way. So 300 residential lots, and I mentioned a few slides ago, what was approved as a part of the sketch plan would allow up to about 390 something. So they are below that threshold of what the sketch plan would allow them to do while still being in substantial conformance with the overall densities or below. So I've mentioned the Glen Eagle Drive connection to Sanctuary Rim, which we've talked a lot about, right? We talked a lot about that as a part of the approval of Phase 2 of Sanctuary Point a couple of years ago. no formal connection to Higby Road right now. There would be an emergency access. So it would be for emergency vehicles only. It wouldn't be for, the people that live there, or anything like that. But, and we're gonna talk quite a bit more about the, interaction with the fire department and their requirements. But there's an existing ranch road there right now. And so that would be, brought up to standard a bit and available as an emergency access point. So something a little bit unique, and we'll take a look at. The applicant's proposing sort of a cluster of lots. They're calling it age targeted, and they'll talk more about what they mean about that, but I want to highlight what it looks like, right? And essentially it's still detached single family, but what it means is that there would be an HOA to take care of everything outside of your house, essentially. So for folks looking for low maintenance property, right, so you don't have to shovel the driveway and your sidewalks or mow your lawn or something like that. So that's sort of this new concept, and again, they'll certainly talk in great detail about that, but you will see that in this area of the site. So again, for perspective, the southern part or the bottom of your slide would be the existing Promontory Point and Homestead neighborhoods. This road would be the extension of Glen Eagle north to Sanctuary Rim to the east. And again, there would be a full roundabout there as a part of this project. And then Sanctuary Rim would extend west with, again, all the lots shown on here are detached single family. Again, the unique quality would be these cluster lots, which would be at the front end of the development, so to speak, both from access and also from their likely filings. So they're proposing a sort of amenity center or clubhouse as a part of this, again, to attract the market that they are appealing to. So then you have more traditional 50 and 60 foot lot frontage, single family lots to the west, and then larger estate lots to the north and to the east, which is where you would buffer the last or most western phase 3 of Sanctuary Point, and then this northern area of the site, which won't actually border too many folks, which will look onto the open space, and then eventually, so it's showing how Glen Eagle can further extend, but again, all the way to Higby Road is not included at this time. So that's sort of a lot to look at, I know. But I just want to try to put it in perspective for you. Obviously, all of this extra that you see is open space. There's quite a bit of wetlands and habitat and things like that running through the middle, right, of Home Place Ranch. And then you'll see that there's quite a bit of open space in between the way that they've designed these roadways and these lots. And again, they'll talk more about that. But this plan shifted quite a bit from some of the original plans that were drawn up in an effort to be more respectful of the grading that's out there and try to work with it rather than work against it. Because it does go east to west, so to speak, downhill. So I know this is a little bit difficult to look at, but I just wanted to be able to highlight for you the likely filings within the phase, right? That's when I come back to you with those final plats, like the filing 6 we saw earlier tonight for Sanctuary Point. Again, the plats would have to be in substantial conformance with the PD site plan, which is what we're approving tonight. And that way I could sort of explain some of the lots and how it all fits together for you. So filing 1 would be about 21 acres, include all of those cluster lots plus just a few more based on sort of the way that you have to build the roadway. It would include extension, again, of Glen Eagle Drive and the roundabout. So just for a second, because I'm sure some folks are thinking about it, the extension and connection of Glen Eagle Drive and Sanctuary Rim is in. Right, that's paved right now as a part of the requirements for Sanctuary Point. This would include the full roundabout and it to be built to its full standard. Right now it's just a connection, right? It doesn't include the curb and gutter in the full width. So that would be included as a part of this. Filing would also include the buffer tracks, which were located along the south, as well as the detention. So filing 2, moving a little bit further west, a little over 17 acres. This is pretty traditional single family lots, about 70 lots included in filing number 2. Filing 3 would be their amenity center. I do appreciate the applicant not putting that as the last phase. which is something that we did chat with them a little bit about, and we have seen that in the past. And so they're proposing that pretty early on for those residents, the amenity center, which is a little over 2 acres. Filing 4 gets a little bit interesting there. It includes some emergency connections for the fire district, as well as 62 lots, and it's a little over 20 acres. So those connections that you see running all the way back to Glen Eagle Drive are emergency connections until such time as they were fully built out. Filing 5, another almost 10 acres, another 40 lots. And then filing 6 is essentially the balance of the site. Platting those tracks, the rest of the tracks, as well as the estate lots. So that leaves about 60 lots in addition to your wetlands and your open space on 59 acres. So those tracks I mentioned account for about 45% of phase 1. So there's definitely a lot of open space in there for a variety of reasons, as you can tell. They include the open space, the buffers, the utilities, obviously the detention ponds, and then that very large tract A includes the wetlands. The tracks would all be owned and maintained by the HOA of Home Place Ranch, so they would not be the responsibility of the town or of Triview. So they are taking that all on themselves. Roadways and traffic, right? That's what everyone wants to talk about as a part of this project. That's all the questions that I've received anyway, are about roadways and traffic with this project. So there was a traffic impact study completed as a part of their submittal requirements. That has been reviewed, revised, and accepted by El Paso County Public Works Department, their county engineer. That did take a bit of work, so we are very proud to have gotten there. It was also reviewed by the town's engineering consultants as well. And essentially, I'm going to summarize a little bit here. What it says, and I'm sure the traffic engineer will say this much more eloquently, there will be increased traffic, but it's within the capacity of Glen Eagle Drive, which is there. So the traffic study did confirm that the connection all the way to Higby Road wasn't warranted with this phase 1. So again, what was heard a lot at the neighborhood meetings, the applicant did a variety of neighborhood meetings with the HOA and the public in general. Calls and questions that staff received, and as well as the planning commission, was all again about traffic and the roadways. So I have a few little snips here from the traffic study for you. Glen Eagle Drive is a well-constructed, per the El Paso Engineering Criteria Manual, 3-lane facility with sufficient width and radii to handle truck traffic. The key, right, sort of is that average daily trips, they're at about a little under 2,000 right now. With this project, they could be around 5,000, but their capacity is about 10,000. So, and again, I'm certainly oversimplifying that, but I will let the traffic engineer speak more eloquently about that. But sort of to summarize is, yes, there will be more traffic on those roadways, but that is what they were built for. So I have a few photos of the current status out there for you. So this is actually looking east, where Glen Eagle sort of is going to make its curve and connect over to Sanctuary Rim Drive. So if you can see in the distance, so Sanctuary Rim and Sanctuary Point ends right about there, and then here's the connection. Again, it is paved at this time, but obviously as a part of this project, it will be built to its full width with the roundabout. So the roundabout would be somewhere in the vicinity of this temporary drainage pond, sort of as it curves, right? It would make, so essentially the curve that is there now would be the curve of the circle, if you didn't go all the way around the circle. So this is obviously looking west. Mountains help with that. And then looking southwest, it's a little bit dark, but you can see the homes in Promontory Point down again at the southern end, where the connection will tie into the existing Glen Eagle Drive. So this project went to all the applicable referral agencies, as all our projects do. As I mentioned, we spent an extensive amount of time working with El Paso County Public Works Department and getting the county engineer's approval of the traffic study. The reason that the county engineer has to approve the traffic study is Baptist Road is a county road and Higbee Road is a county road. So if you look at Home Place Ranch as a whole, right, access to the site is from county roads. So that required their approval of the traffic study. Obviously, again, all the other folks that we always send these things to, including, again, the town's engineering review, Tri-View, Fire District. We'll certainly talk more about them. So the Planning Commission hearing, this item was heard July 25th before the Planning Commission. They did ask a number of questions to staff and the applicant, primarily about traffic and roadways. Also a little bit about the age-targeted concept that the applicant's gonna talk more with you more about. Emergency access, water, wastewater service, and then they actually spent quite a bit of time talking about the future phase, which really isn't a part of this, but that was some of the things that they had asked about. Mr. McGrady, District Manager of Tri-View, was at the Planning Commission meeting and did answer some of those questions. And I know the applicant has been working with Tri-View to get everything worked out for the water and wastewater service. So 6 members of the public spoke during the Planning Commission hearing. By and large, the concern was traffic, roadways, or access to the site. So again, that has been from the beginning, right? This project started many, many months ago. That's always been what we've heard is the number one concern. So the Planning Commission, in light of those concerns, expressed the desire for sort of formal written approval from the fire district. Again, this had been to the fire district. We had talked with them. The applicant had talked with them and worked through it, but the Planning Commission wanted formal written approval as the fire marshal was not able to be at that meeting that night. So with a condition of formal approval from the fire district, Planning Commission voted 6-1 to approve with conditions. So following the Planning Commission meeting, the applicants and staff worked with the fire district explaining that requirement from them to get formal written approval. So we met with the fire marshal, talked through any concerns, and he essentially formalized requirements. I would say these requirements were already essentially accounted for primarily, but they are written out, right, every I dotted, so to speak, so that there is no confusion or question about what would be required from the fire district's perspective. And I will include those. So what I have done is essentially translate the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval from the fire district to Planning Commission's recommendation of what the fire district recommended, which were these conditions. So with just a little bit of liberty there, the Planning Commission recommends approval of Home Place Ranch, or this ordinance 28, subject to the following conditions from the fire district. And these are taken exactly from that fire district memo, which was included in your packet. And they are quite lengthy, but the emergency access route from the proposed roundabout of Glen Eagle Drive and Sanctuary Rim Drive to Higbee Road is to be completed with filing 1. Access road to be 20-foot wide, all-weather surface, such as road base, crusher fines, or asphalt millings, and follow approximately the existing ranch road. Access road to be maintained by the property owner in a workable condition at all times. Again, we had talked through that, but it is formalized at this time, recommended by the fire district and the Planning Commission as a condition of approval. Number 2, an additional emergency access route shall be constructed from the western cul-de-sac on Sanctuary Rim Drive, connecting to Sabre Creek Drive through Tract H of the homestead at Jackson Creek, filing number 1. This access shall be with filing 2 and consist of a 16-foot wide all-weather surface. Condition 3, the access route from the northern cul-de-sac of filing 4, which is Road K back to Road L and Glen Eagle Drive, shall be completed with filing 4 and shall be 20-foot wide, consisting of an all-weather surface. Number 4, in the event the applicant cannot secure access within Tract H of Homestead at Jackson Creek, filing number 1, per condition number 2, the access route described in condition number 3 shall be completed with filing 1. So a little bit of if-ors here. And then removable bollards shall be located at the entrance and exit of the access routes, right, to ensure that they're not used by folks they're not intended to be used by. So if it would be allowable to Mr. Mayor and the board, the applicant would like to go ahead and do their presentation. They think they're going to answer a lot of your questions, and then staff and the applicant would be available to answer any questions from the board following their presentation, if that's acceptable.
Okay, is that good with the board?
Yep.
Wait just a second to get yours up. So that works as the mouse, and this works as your advancement. Yeah. Or you can use the arrows. It's up to you, and that's just if you need to use the mouse. Does that work?
Absolutely.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees, and public. I'm Phil Stupert with HR Green, and I'm the lead land planner on this project. Been working on it for almost 2 years, so it's been a fun one for us. We also have Greg Panza, HR Green. He's the lead civil engineer, and he'll be talking in a little bit about some of the engineering aspects on this project. John Aldridge is the transportation engineer, and he'll come up here and talk about some of these concerns. Traffic has been one of the biggest concerns, no surprise. And then Brian Kneep from Goodwin Knight as developer, and it's part of the Challenger Homes group out of the Colorado Springs. Brian Barr owns Goodwin Knight and Challenger. They're all kind of together. Goodwin Knight just functions as the development side of their company. Okay. So Jennifer did a good job of covering a lot of things. I'm going to be sensitive to time, try to get through a lot of this fairly briefly. Allow a lot of time for questions and answers, okay? So I'm going to skip through this. If you see things on the slide I'm not covering you want me to talk about, certainly stop me. I'm going to go through this as quick as I can, okay? So a little bit on the overall. The only thing I want to mention here is that we're proposing residential use, single-family detached, as Jennifer covered, and that's what's all surrounding us. As I go through this, you're going to see how we try to match lot sizes and things like that to be sensitive to the neighbors. A little bit of history. Jennifer covered that when this was approved and so on. The reason that didn't move forward is that developer could not get financing, and then we had that little thing called the recession that hit. And of course, that kind of just stalled the project. They lost it, I believe, back to the bank and went into receivership. And then Brian Bard and Goodwin Knight picked the property up about in 2017, was it? Picked the property up, and then now we're moving forward and obviously focusing on that phase one area. Jennifer talked about this. One thing I do want to point out is down in the phase one area, per that plan, about 390 units were allowed. We are proposing 300. The rest of the property had another 690 units allowed, and they also had some attached product. Right here in the center where I'm pointing that red is all attached product. We are not going to do any attached product. It's all detached when we get to those phases. Again, I know we're not here tonight for that north section, but I just want to kind of share some of our vision for that just so you have an understanding. We're not going to do any attached. And we think density-wise, we've talked about the number of units, and we don't think we'll achieve even half of that 690 when we get to that side. That plan was super aggressive. There's steep topography, trees, rocks, topo. It's just not possible or feasible, and it's not really our vision. Our vision is larger lots on that north side, okay? Down in phase one, the densities on that project range from 3 to 6 units per acre. We're on a gross space of about 2.19, I think it is. On a net is probably about 3 to 4, okay? Yeah, 2.29 is what we have on our phase one. The other thing I looked at closely, just so you guys are aware, down in this area, Jackson Creek, I calced that density down in there, and it came out to about 3.02 gross units per acre, so including the gross boundary. Ours is actually less, and the reason for that, even though we have smaller lots, ours is less, and the reason is for all the open space. We have 45% open space, whereas the developments to the south don't have that much. So it's a little deceiving, right, because our lots are smaller, we're clustered, but on a gross basis, our density is actually less. Yeah, we look at the property very closely. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, except to talk about the mouse habitat. If you look, tilt this up. all this red is that mouse habitat, okay? We can't touch it, we can't develop in there at all. We may cross it eventually with a road, but we will not be developing that area. There was some concern about, okay, the habitat, you know, if we do cross it, we're gonna mess with it, things like that. Since it's been homesteaded, that property has had cattle on it, and it's been mowed to the ground for, could be 100 years, okay? They've never found mice on our property. Most of it is closer to I-25, as many of you probably know. Nevertheless, we have a habitat on there, okay? What we think is when we let this all revegetate and go natural, the mice will come in there, which have never been there before, but they'll come in that habitat, as well as all kinds of other things, right? So fox and there'll be hawks and things. It'll be an environmental corridor, and we like that. I mean, it's gonna be a great environmental corridor through our property that will stay that way. We're gonna have estate lots up by Higbee Estates, so we're gonna match some of the lot sizes along that edge. We think that'll be a good land use transition. And then up in the northwest corner, the school district has met with us, at least three times, we had meetings with them about a potential school. Now, when the referendum did not pass last fall, it seemed like that kind of got put in the back burner, because we went as far as, site planning and laying that out, and we had 3 meetings with the architect going through that. Referendum doesn't pass, they just kind of shelved that. But we're totally open to dedicating that land and having that be a school when the time comes, because it will be needed at some point. So now we'll focus on phase one, but before I get too much in the plan, I want to talk about the meetings we have with neighbors. We spend a lot of time, and I've recognized a lot of faces out here. We spend a lot of time with them, so I want to share not only what happened, but what came out of that and what we tried to do with the plan. So the first meeting we had was, we invited everybody, okay, all the HOAs, Jackson Creek, Promontory, and Higbee. We had about 110 people come to that meeting. It was on a Friday night, so I thought that was a very well attended, okay. We set the vision, threw it out there, answered questions, but mostly just listened to what the concerns were. Traffic density, all those common things that you guys hear about, okay. We told them at the time that we'd come back and meet with them one-on-one, and we did that, and you can see the dates here. Now, some of the things that came out of that were, for Jackson Creek, how close are homes to them, okay, which I would have the same concern. So you'll see in there, we actually build a nice buffer that's not required, but we build a really nice buffer along that edge. There's a lot of drainage issues. They have storms, tons of water coming down through the backs of their lots. Greg's going to talk about how we will fix that, as well as take care of our drainage, okay? We moved the trail around to where kind of they wanted it, and we also added two trail connections from Jackson Creek into our development, okay? So there's going to be two connections so people can walk from Jackson Creek into our project. And also they had a lot of concerns about prairie dogs. I think our managers tried to do some things to help that concern. A lot of prairie dogs and Home Place Ranch are coming into their homes, and I think they've done some work in the meantime to try to help that situation. Promontory Point.
Rattle in my house, what you doing?
Okay. Promontory Point, the big issue there was Glen Eagle, right? We're going to put a lot more traffic through Glen Eagle, and Jennifer covered that well. It's built for that. It has the capacity for that. So one of the things that we agreed to do, or tried to do actually, was get all the construction traffic to go to Higbee, so it would not be going through. So we went to El Paso County, and they would not let us do that, unfortunately. I mean, we were ready to do it, build the road, and let it all go to the north. The reason they didn't let that happen is because Higbee Road, they feel, will not handle all the construction traffic going there. So, unfortunately, we can't do that, and it's gonna have to go through Glen Eagle. I know you're not happy about that, but it's, you know, we tried, and we just couldn't get through. They weren't willing to allow us to do that. Speed limits, they felt like everybody's speeding on there, too high a speed, so we talked to Triview, and they lowered it to 25 miles per hour for some sections of Glen Eagle. And I don't think Jim McGrady here, I don't believe so. He can talk more about that if you have questions with it, but they lowered the speed limit. The other part was, can we put a digital speed limit to slow traffic on Glen Eagle? And Classic Homes, we worked with them and basically came to an agreement that we would help fund any sort of a digital sign in Glen Eagle to flash at people, notify them they're going too fast. That's really about all we can feel we can do, because the road is a road, we can't change it. You know, it's there, but those are some of the things that we can do. Higbee Estates, again, not next to phase one, but when we get to that point, we'll try to work with some good transitions of lot sizes next to them. Worked with Miami staff at Pasco County. Jennifer covered all those. NEPCO, Tom Versbo, I think I saw him come in. I think wrote a lengthy letter initially with a lot of issues. We sat down with Tom and, you know, tried to work through it. I don't think we solved everything, but we tried to accommodate and change some things from NEPCO's concerns. The fire district, we accommodated them, made Jamie happy. We had 3 or 4 meetings with Jamie and came to agreements on, as Jennifer covered. So I think we're set there. And then Triview, Greg is going to cover a slide on Triview about how that has come together. So, sorry for the amount of time there, but I thought it was important to show, because we did spend a lot of time with the neighbors and what kind of resulted from that. So phase one has 45% open space. We created the buffer on the south side, have trails through it. And the part that I'm gonna spend a couple slides or some time here on is the age-targeted aspect. The reason we're focusing on this buyer is there's 77 million baby boomers coming into, that are present right now. And if you see in Florida and Arizona, there's a lot of these communities being built to service this buyer. So there's 10,000 that retire every single day in the nation, okay? So that's why we're building to this particular buyer. You can read down through some of the items there. 60% of them want to downsize their home to a smaller home, smaller lot. Okay, so that's why we're proposing smaller homes and lots on here for that particular buyer. And they want less yard maintenance, but yet they want high quality homes. So a lot of our homes are going to have no maintenance on the outside of the building, the structure. We will take care of that. There's some of the benefits. I won't read through all those, but I think there are benefits to having this demographic in home place, in Monument. It's a great demographic to have in this town. We are going to have a clubhouse with the amenities that are listed there, focused on this particular demographic. Now, this was the first plan that we showed the public, the town, and everything back in March of 2018. And you can see here large lots on the east, clubhouse, this location, some of these villa product here, and the rest is single family detached. The layout stayed pretty much the same as it is today. We made changes based on neighbors, based on the town, try new things, but it's generally stayed the same. So there it is, and you've seen this, Jennifer covered this well. I won't go into a lot of detail. Except maybe here, to point out that all these cul-de-sacs you can see are stepping down the hill. That's why that's designed like that. There's 110 feet of fall from east to west, so they're stepping down to minimize the grading. This is the product that Jennifer mentioned in here that's a little unique. They are detached units, as you can see. So each one of those is a detached unit. All that open space that you see in there will be commonly maintained by the HOA, okay? So if you buy that unit, we call it lock and leave, you don't have to worry about anything outside of the home. Everything's gonna be commonly maintained by the HOA. Now, they're about 1,500 square feet, so they're not very large on this particular product because that's what these buyers want. So when you have that type of a product that's smaller, one of the things that can be not so great is the streets. When you drive down, and if you've ever been in a community where all the garages out front, and that's all you see is garages, that's how it can look, and we're not doing that. What we did was, if you look down in here, we have side load garages. So notice the street is out here, and then the garage actually comes in from both of these sides. So when you're driving down the street, you actually see a very nice facade looking at you. On the front load product, the garage is looking towards us. However, we recessed it and brought some of the architecture out kind of in this area here. So we think it's going to be a very nice street scene. Here's kind of a quick 3D model on the top. Shows some of the side load garages and how that might happen. They're all one-story ranch, okay, no two-story. And then what some of the front load garages might look like, okay? The architecture's farmhouse, craftsman type style, which I think fits into Monument. Kind of the last part I'm going to cover here before Greg comes up is the buffer along the south side. Remember, we kind of incorporated that into the area. Now, the previous plan that was approved by Monument back many years ago, this was the plan, okay? It was kind of a gridded plan. You can see all the lots along the property line. I think we had 35 lots that they proposed. When we met with the neighbors, of course, they weren't wild about all of those homes being backed right on them. So as you can see in the plan, we did a lot of things to modify that to make that better. Build in the buffer, and we changed the orientation. So you can see down in here how we actually have these cul-de-sacs open-ended, and all of the buffers built in there, anywhere from 30 feet up to 125 foot of buffer. Okay, the 125 is over here in the detention area. They asked us in meetings, okay, well, how far is my house to the next house, right? And those ended up being about 80 to 125 feet. So pretty good situation given the fact that we didn't necessarily have to do that, but we did try to build that buffer in, and hopefully that neighbors are at least pleased with that effort. Lastly, they're all one-story ranch, as I said earlier, all through here, all the way to this point at Glen Eagle. There are 2 stories on these 4 lots. These are the custom lots on the east side. Those would be 2-story in that small section there. Okay. Trails. Plan Commission had a lot of concern about trail connections. What were we doing with that? We have 4 connections that we're making on phase 1, and at least 2 that we would make on the north side. But on the south side, we blow that up. There's going to be 1 on Glen Eagle. We're going to take the current 8-foot trail, eventually go to Higbee with that, but it will come through phase 1 for now. And then we make connections, 2 connections over in Jackson Creek, as I mentioned earlier. And then lastly, the county wanted us to get the trail, and I talked to El Paso County. They wanted the trail to come through our development and provide a stub all the way over here on the west side. So we're going to accommodate their request on that as well. Now, some of the trails in this area, all the red lines you see there are built, constructed, where it's a kind of a blue dash. The corridor is there, but it's not actually built yet. So the key is the corridors are there. One day, this can all be interconnected with our project as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Greg. He's going to talk some high-level engineering items and try not to get too much in the weeds, but we'll certainly be here to answer questions as well. And then next, John will come up and address the transportation. Quick. So you can just use the right.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Phil. So the engineering is, talk about grading a little bit. Jennifer hit on the grading, but what we did is we kept with the natural grades of the land. So the way this is laid out is you're falling about 3 to 5% from east to west. What we did on this layout is try to keep as close to the natural grade as possible to keep the massing the same as you gradually go up the hill. Now, with the long cul-de-sacs, the idea behind the cul-de-sacs, as they go down, they step down this hill, you're going to have gardens and walkouts with views to the west. What this also does is for the properties to the south, they got better view corridors looking up north, so you don't have that wall of homes just right on your property line. With the drainage on this property, drainage also is coming from east and going west. We're picking up a bunch of water from Sanctuary Point. What we're doing as we're coming down through our property is we created a swale on the southern boundary of the property. It's around 65–70% of the water will be directed, and this is historically, this is where the water goes. It'll be directed to this swale, and it's not just going to be your standard trapezoidal swale along the property lines. We're going to beautify it and make it a nice corridor. But this will intercept the big storm flows and take them to the west. As it goes down to the west, we have 2 detention ponds, one draining south towards the estates of Jackson Creek, and another one on the north draining towards the Jackson Creek open space. And I actually want to add one more thing to that. With talks during the HOA meetings, there was concerns about flooding along that south property line. We even saw a few videos of water coming down and overtopping and coming over into those homes to the south. So what this swale essentially does is going to capture and redirect that flows along that property line, going straight west and drop it into our detention facility to take care of that problem. So with our water and sewer, we've been talking with Jim McGrady and Jim McGrady's engineer, JDS Hydro, about where to connect with this property, since, it is flatter of the properties, but there still is a lot of relief across the site. There's multiple pressure zones, so we're gonna have to do multiple tie-ins to the south. So we're gonna be tying in along with our water along Glen Eagle and within 2 tracks within Jackson Creek, the estates of Jackson Creek. The existing system is sized large enough to take to provide us water. We're gonna have 2 pressure relief valves in there. For our sewer, we have 2 connections on our sewer, one in Glen Eagle Drive, and the second is gonna be in the tract on the east side of the property, on the west side of the property. Now, working through Triview with the addition of the sanitary sewer, there will be some upsizing needed downstream within Jackson Creek. Triview owns a water treatment facility that backflows into the sanitary sewer, and we've got to upsize that. So we've been working with Jim on helping him out, creating a better situation to relieve some of those sanitary sewers downstream, upsize them so he's not having those capacity issues. With the filings on this property, right now we have 6 filings. As we go through, we may take multiple filings down at once. With filing 1, as soon as filing 1 goes in, I'm going to get into a little bit about the emergency access. We need to create a better access to the west. So we work with Jamie at the fire district, and what we did is we discussed. Can you actually see my pointer on your screens? Mm-hmm. Okay. At this cul-de-sac to the west, we discussed having the fire access, an emergency fire access, come south and tie into Saber Creek Drive. This is going to be, the tract is about 20 feet wide, so it's going to be probably about a 12-foot access drive. We're going to get as much as possible. This is the bollard access that Jennifer discussed. But what's going to happen is, say filing 1 goes in, just filing 1, you're going to have a temporary road going to the west and a temporary access, a fire access right here to the south in case of any kind of wildfire, major event, if you got to evacuate citizens or the fire district needs access to the development. In addition, you're going to have the emergency access going north from the roundabout here, going up to Higbee. This will also function as fire access only, per the requirements of El Paso County only letting us do fire access to Higbee Road and emergency access to Higbee Road. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to John. We're going to go into a little bit about the traffic.
Good evening. My name is John Aldridge. I'm a Colorado licensed professional engineer doing traffic now for probably about 45 years. So I think I know what I'm doing, hopefully. Anyway, I think this project has been, really a delight to work with. I think even though there's been certainly some, consternation about, what's going to happen out here. But we did, look at everything we could as far as how this is going to work out in the future and how it conforms to all of the various plans that have been developed, particularly by the county, and that's their 2016 Major Corridors Update Plan, and also what the town has in mind as far as how these roads and the amount of traffic that's going to be generated, how that's all going to be handled. So we're fairly confident that it's a very good plan, and it conforms to all of the El Paso and town requirements. In particular, you know, we know that Glen Eagle Drive is there. Now it connects, there's a connection point right at the end of it so that it can extend northwards. It's always been the intent that it does extend northwards to Higby Road. And we've done an access control plan on Higby Road, and we're looking at how that will function in the future. And we want to make sure that Glen Eagle does connect probably to a future extension of Furrow Road that will come down and also connect to Higby. One of the biggest problems that or issues that we've been dealing with is the Baptist Road intersection, how that's going to be affected by this particular development. As it's been mentioned, currently that road, or Glen Eagle, carries about 2,000 trips per day. With this phase 1 project, we're going to be adding another 3,000 to that. And that's going to be about 5,000 trips on this road on a daily basis. How that impacts the intersection, we've done a very considerable amount of work as far as analyzing how that intersection currently operates, what features it has, etc. And we put it into a various program called Synchro. It's a traffic analysis program. And right now it's operating a level of service C. I don't know if you need me to explain what level of service C means, but it's a very good level of service. Okay? A would be the best, but that'd be hardly any traffic going through the intersection. F is terrible, where you have some delay. You probably wait 2 or 3 cycles before you can get through the intersection. So a level of service C is a really good level. And that happens in the AM peak hour, or the AM and the PM peak hours. So the level of service, that's where it's measured. In the future, with all the additional traffic, that intersection will still operate at level of service C. So there's no need for us to go in there and, you know, widen anything, add additional turn lanes or anything. Everything is there. The signal operates exceptionally well, and we're not going to really see any degradation of the level of service at that intersection. We've done, you know, numerous counts out there. We've done counts, and we've also compared the counts that we took to what Sanctuary Point, the traffic analysis that was done from that, and we're an exact match. Okay. See, what was it? Well, just a little bit more about Glen Eagle Drive. It is a very well-constructed road. It has sufficient radii and width to handle the additional traffic, and it also can handle the truck traffic very well. The truck traffic, I mean, they'll be controlled by the developers and the contractors, so to make sure that they don't leave any debris on the road, that they'll pick up all the mud tracking or anything like that, and they'll be responsible. They must be responsible, obey the speed limit, and don't create too much noise, as little noise as possible. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Our last slide here, just to conclude, and we'll go through questions, is just that, you know, we feel that this is a neat project for Monument. This particular demographic buyer, you know, a lot of retired military in this area that want to stay here and I think could live in this community. You know, I live in the Monument area. Hope I can live in here one day. It's going to be a nice community for that particular demographic. We've worked hard with the neighbors. You know, we really have. We've listened. We couldn't make everybody happy. It's never going to be able to do that. But we've tried hard to do that to the best of our ability. And there's a lot of open space in here, and that's just for phase one. I mean, ultimately, this project, Home Place Ranch, is gonna have a ton of open space throughout the entire development. And we're gonna connect those trails, as I mentioned, so that everybody can utilize that asset. So to conclude, we request the approval of the prelim and final PD site plan. And we'll be sitting here and we can answer any questions, and we'll be happy to do that for you, okay?
Questions
Thank you
from the
for your
board? Let's start with,
Would you like to go first, Trustee Clark?
no, we'll just start going down the line.
Okay, you know, I appreciate all the hard work that's been done, and I think it's a great development. I was just taking some notes.
Okay.
And I've heard about the mouse, I've heard about birds, I've heard about foxes, I've heard about trails, I've heard about the clubhouse, and I've heard a lot about open space, but I've heard nothing. Oh, and I've heard a lot about Glen Eagle, but I've heard nothing about this strategy, because even you, the developer, have agreed that Higbee is a challenge, but there is no strategy, no business plan, nothing in filings 1 through 6. And that bothers me, because one word you didn't say during your whole presentation was safety. It's not about traffic, it's about safety. And when we talk about age target, if I had elderly parents, I wouldn't want them living there, because God forbid there is a catastrophe, a fire. I'm not worried about the fire getting in, I'm worried about people getting out.
Yeah.
So I really want to know, what is your business strategy? Because these are great presentations, and it's going to be a beautiful development. But I really feel like the developer has said, well, you know, Higbee's a pain, it's a county, we're not going to worry about it. But all this other frills, if I'm in there and something happens, I can get it, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. So, I mean, communications 101, you minimize the differences. You did a great presentation, but I think nobody's concerned about the development. They just want to know that people can get in and out safely. So what is the game plan?
Yeah, go ahead.
But again, I'm looking for absolutes, not hypothetical,
Yeah.
you know, and not we'll look at it tomorrow and the day after. I would think it would be under your filings.
No, absolutely, no, that's a great point. I mean, safety is key, and I guess when we are talking about fire access, I guess we have safety in mind when we're talking about fire access and evacuation routes and everything. I know we didn't say the word safety, but what we're thinking on this, I mean, one, safety-wise, Glen Eagle itself, we decided to build it with a roundabout for more traffic calming. For speed, we're looking at safety there. For access of, for fire emergency equipment, for the residents, that's when we were working with Jamie with the fire district, and we looked at different situations, and we have access directly south. We have access to the west, or to the east to Sanctuary Point. We have access north going up to Higbee, and honestly, we had a fight for that access north, and it was for fire access vehicles. I mean, we tried to get construction too, but we had to push just to get access onto Higbee for safety reasons. So we, if you look on the phasing plan, we have that blue sliver. And what that is as you come down here, we backtracked, and we were gonna cut in a 20-foot emergency access road back here to come over to Glen Eagle for another safety precaution to evacuate more people and for another route for the fire protection vehicles.
So is that something that's documented? I'm sure you're gonna hear from residents. And again, I'm thrilled fire can get in, but I'm concerned that people can get out. Is this something that is documented on paper, business plan of what the strategy is for the development?
Yes. So when we met with Jamie, he presented a letter to us, and in that letter, we discussed specifically when these phased accesses, these emergency accesses, will be built. And so that's all stated within that letter.
And then part 2 to my question, where is the documented business plan? Because if Higbee's a challenge, I get the feeling from your presentation, you guys have said, well, that's just the way it is. Now, and unless you can share something otherwise, I mean, I know there's visions from Triview and the town and what have you, but it's, again, it's not about the development. It's in, out, and safety and residents. That's what our responsibility is up here. They're at the top of the totem pole.
Right. You know, we, we talked to we worked with El Paso as much as we can, as feasibly possible, and then being that, I mean, getting responses out of them was a little difficult, but we did meet with them and talk with them, like what needs to be done to Higbee. At the end, they're like, we're only gonna allow, we don't know what's gonna happen with Higbee. They're still in fluctuation of what they wanna do with Higbee. So they were comfortable granting us emergency access to Higbee, only right now. Part of the discussion we had at the last plan commission meeting was, once, this current project, the way it is right here with the 6 filings, can get access down to Baptist, to the south or to the east, but if we were to go and develop more to the north, that's gonna require a connection to Higbee, and that's gonna require us to make that connection as, per the standards set at that time for what Higbee is. I mean, we're kind of working with El Paso County to figure out what exactly they want to do with Higbee, so we're kind of, you know, working behind them right now. But once that development to the north happens, we do have to make that connection to the north to Higbee.
So it is in the vision, or is there a potential the county can say, we're sorry, you can't tap in, which would shut down half of your filings? Or you would still continue and just not have access? I'm asking.
Well, I can't answer for the county. Jennifer wants to answer that.
Well, I'm not answering for the county. I'll start by saying that.
These are just fair, absolute questions.
Sure. Well, a couple of things. I would first answer your question, Trustee Bornstein, about Higbee Road and a plan for Higbee Road, and say that that's actually beyond these folks and something that the county, and in particular the town and Triview, are actively working on. And because it extends beyond Home Place Ranch, right? Higbee Road, that is adjacent to town property that will develop. And so I would say there is a plan that is coming into place on that. But it is beyond this project. So that would be number one. Number two is for the future phases to the north, yes, a connection to Higbee Road would absolutely be required. I think that that's clear, both from the traffic issues, the number of access points that'll be required per our code standards, as well as conversations that have already taken place both with the developer, Triview, the town, and the county.
We would have to approve those phases anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Trustee Romanello, your questions?
In all those detached, and I'm glad they're detached, and your example showed the garages, they look like 2-car garages. They're all 2-car garages?
Yeah, I believe they all are, correct.
Okay.
Trustee Koopman?
Yeah, a handful of questions. So the cul-de-sacs, I'm sure this isn't the first time it's come up. It seems a little unique that there's that many cul-de-sacs. I don't know if I've ever seen a development like that. Why?
We have over 110 feet of fall from this point down to here. And so there's really two main reasons. One is to work with the topography, so we can step it down, keep grading. Because we have on one side, just right at home, on the downhill side, we have walkout. So we're making these 10-foot drops as we go down. Secondly, out in the property, it all looks to Pikes Peak. So we're also maximizing, if you look at on these sides of the roads, tons of views of Pikes Peak, all the way down through there. So
Got
it's
it.
just, we looked at all kinds of designs, that's the one we kind of settled on.
So the aesthetics of it is really the driving force.
What's a
behind
driving force? And
the cul-de-sacs, but also the cul-de-sacs being one of the primary concerns when it comes to safety. As far as being able to evacuate, emergency access points, things like that, limiting the ability to come in and out of the development.
Well, I mean, if we could, well, let's put it this way. If we could have connected to Saber Creek in here, we certainly would have, at least once, maybe twice. But when that project got approved or was developed, there is no road stubs. Typically, we see that, okay, and then we connected those stubs. Along the entire stretch, there wasn't one. There is the 2 20-foot easements, which we are putting emergency access through on the west one, was about the best we could do. But to your point, it really needs another access in there. It's just, it wasn't feasible, it wasn't possible to have a road go through.
Well, at which point I'd be looking at, what do you change development-wise to make it safer versus the aesthetic side? How do you make it more aesthetically pleasing to the potential buyers? How many access points, as far as emergency access points, are there total?
Emergency access points, we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4.
And to confirm, that's all 4 of those are going to be done during filing 1, correct?
Filing one, you're gonna have 3.
Okay.
The fourth one is the blue line on the top there, and that will be done with filing 4.
Filing 4, okay. And is there a formal evacuation plan? Written?
We don't have an evacuation plan formed yet for the development. We did a fire mitigation plan, but evacuation plan is something that we can take a look at. Yeah, good idea.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
What is the build timeline on, from, say, filing 1 to filing 2, projected for this project?
So 12 to 18 months, obviously a lot of that's gonna depend on just how the sales go. We've talked about opening up, 3 different models, because essentially you have 4 total products out here. You have the estate lots, you have those villas, which are the no maintenance thing, and then you have 2 types of single-family detached for the rest of the property. So I think the intent, right, Brian, is to possibly be able to open up at least maybe 4 products, which so therefore we open those up, and then it's a matter of sales base. If they're selling quickly, then the time frame is shortened. If it's slow, then it lengthens. So 12 to 18 months is a guess.
Okay. And have you guys had any communications? You said the communications with the school district kind of died off after the
Yeah.
last ballot initiative.
Yep.
Have those communications started back up?
No.
Okay. Do you plan on pursuing?
We can pursue it. I mean, we're totally open. It's more on their end. That's, I mean, I went as far as helping them design the site. And we got that far and agreed to being able to dedicate the land, and then referendum didn't pass, and frankly, didn't hear from them again.
Okay.
Did you want to address something with that?
I would just add that we know from speaking with the school district that they would not be wanting land dedication on this
On this one.
phase. So it would come really as part of the future phases. The school district would simply get cash in lieu with building permits on phase 1.
Okay. Trustee, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. In regards to the buffer between Home Place Ranch and Jackson Creek Homestead and Promontory Point, you mentioned a range of buffers in the development of 30 to 125 feet, I think you said.
Roughly, yeah.
What's going to be the buffer between the existing housing complexes and Home Place Ranch? As far as Jackson Creek, Homestead, and Promontory Point, how wide is that gonna be?
That is the range. So if I can just, if you look on your screen, you can you see the numbers that are on here? Okay, so, so, down through here, this is 124 feet in that spot. This is 40 feet, 47. That one's well, that was from house to house, 106. 54 feet, 48 feet. Down in here is our tightest spot where we get down to, I believe it's like 38 feet in there, if that gives you an idea of
Okay,
dimensions.
thank you. Has there been any thought as to how that's all going to be landscaped, how that's gonna look in the end?
Yeah, now again, this is preliminary PDD site plan,
Right.
but that next step, we are gonna fully design that. We've put some thought in, as Greg said, it's gonna be beautified. It's not just gonna be a concrete channel. We're not at final design. That is the next step to go there, and of course, that will be back before you. But right now, we have a vision, and it's not final design.
Okay,
But it'll be a nice drainage corridor. It's
okay.
naturalized.
Just to add to that on the drainage swale itself, like with the steep grade going down to the west, we're looking to meander that and pick up some grade to make it so it's not just a straight trapezoidal shot, so.
Okay. That kind of dovetails on, the board has gotten emails as of late, like within the past few days, from residences that live in the area already, and they're concerned about the drainage, which I know you've mentioned, but they're still concerned about the drainage regardless of what was discussed in the meetings with the people in the area. In regards to if there's a heavy rainfall, how is that gonna impact the existing homes? So that was one email that we received. And then another was essentially questioning the quality of the building, of the development itself, and concern about home values dropping because of the not handling the drainage properly and possibly not the quality of the development that certain people would like to see.
Fair enough. You wanna address drainage and I'll do the other one?
Yeah, let's do that. So, on the drainage, so we have the detention ponds, which are gonna mitigate for the additional impervious area that's out there, all the streets and the rooftops going in. So the swale on the southern boundary is sized roughly for about a 100-year storm event, they call it. That's gonna convey flows. I mean, granted, if you get 500-year, 1,000-year, I mean, if it happens, yes, it'll overtop along with everything else in Colorado Springs and Monument and Denver, et cetera. So you're gonna have the swale that's gonna convey the water to the detention pond. Now, the detention pond's gonna hold it back. So instead of that slug of water coming down and going to that 48-inch pipe on the east side of the site and overtopping and going through the tract and down through Jackson Creek, we're now gonna hold it up at the pond. So your slug of water that's coming in like this and matching the other slug of water, if you look at the flows, to create a double slug of water coming through, we're delaying our water back. So you're gonna have that first slug go through, and then you're gonna have our slug go through from the detention pond release over time. And we'll release that water over roughly like a 48-hour to 72-hour period. So it actually helps the big floods downstream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the people that sent the emails will hear that at some point, if they're not here now. One last question, and this has to do with the traffic. The level of service C that was defined, thank you. So right now, there's 2,000 trips a day, and it's going to increase to 5,000 trips a day, and then you'd mentioned in the future that we will still be able to maintain a level of service C in the future. I'm not really sure how you can determine the future.
Well, when we're looking at the future, you know, we are considering the development of phase one, or phase two. So that traffic in the future, a lot of it is gonna be directed up to Higby Road, right? So that, we still, consider that there'll be 3,000 trips, even in the 20-year future on going on Glen Eagles. But it's gonna be kind of a wash, if you will. So some people from the north will wanna go, south to Baptist, and then some people from this filing will wanna go up to Higby Road. So that's the kind of manipulation we've done to make that determination that we're gonna have, a fairly consistent flow on Glen Eagles throughout the project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all the questions I have.
I don't believe we answered your one question about the quality. And correct me, Brian, if I don't get these numbers right, but the cluster of the Villa product, it's gonna start in the upper 400s. And then the other products will be in the 500, probably up into the 600,000 range. So I get it, there's smaller lots and homes, so I've done a lot of these projects, that's always the concern. We tried hard in the architecture to make that look nice, right? They're small ranch homes with some nice architecture, and the price range is gonna be in there. So, you can never guarantee anything, but it's gonna be a very nice community, very nice product, and the price range is such that fits really right into the area. So,
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up what was sent to the Board of Trustees in email, because the people couldn't make it here tonight.
oh, okay, fair enough.
Okay, my question, you said that in the cul-de-sac that's in the southwest corner, you said there's going to be an emergency exit in that cul-de-sac?
That is correct.
Okay, what would it take to make that permanent instead of an emergency exit?
We're open.
No? Hey, okay. All right, I got my answer. I thought it would ease traffic flow, but okay.
Yeah, and by the way, that easement is only 20 feet wide,
Okay,
okay, down there, so we've kind of joked that, if that was gonna happen, we literally would have to remove a house, so
okay.
not possible, unfortunately. Yeah,
Put it out there, okay?
yeah.
Trustee Clark.
I have a few questions, and I apologize, but can I see that, the filing map with the
Mhm.
sections on it one more time? My first, so we're talking about section 1 being developed first, is that correct?
That is correct.
And 12 to 18 months of time frame between construction timeframes. And then you have your emergency access over here by section 5, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what would it take to get an emergency access right by number 1? Why can't there be something closer for these age 55 and older people to get out?
Well, I guess the thought behind that is, we can't go south down to Promontory Point And when we look at this, all the fuel, if we're looking at a wildfire scenario, all the fuel is to the east here and to the north here. So if there was an access due to a wildfire, they're gonna travel to the west. So if they travel west, we're gonna have this road paved, whether we do one or we do 1 and 2 together. We're gonna have, an all-weather surface from the pavement over to this tract to go
That's just
south.
a long way to go in a fire. And
There's,
even the blue line, it's just incredibly long. So that was my first question. Thank you for answering that.
Sure.
And then I was wondering about the water drainage. Are there gonna be French drains around each home itself with swales bringing the water to the detention pond?
the initial, so usually you put the French drains in if there's, well, typically, and this goes in the building code, but typically you have to have a French drain go into a sump for each individual home. Will there be a common system to drain that sump to the pond? No, because the groundwater here is way too low. It doesn't get into the basements. There is groundwater, obviously, when you get more towards the creek. But right now, the geotechnical report has shown that we don't have high enough groundwater to justify doing it like a full development under drain system to take it to the pond.
So there are no French drains around the homes?
There are French, per code for the home itself, they'll have French drains that go into a sump. And I apologize, I'm speaking a little out of code here, but from there, it's up to the individual buyer. If there ever was issues with groundwater, they put a sump pump in, it would drain the surface.
Are you also asking about just surface drains around a house and that it can actually get to the street? I mean, you're gonna have swales. I think that's.
Okay, so yes, I'll go into that too. So that's the house itself. So going into the swales, like, yes, on each side yard, we will have swales that what we do is we size them for also the 100-year event to make sure they're not getting in the window wells, doorways. So they're gonna pass through, and that's one of the big conveniences of having those open space slivers between all these cul-de-sacs, is we can drain to those and then bring it safely south to that major swale that goes east-west along the south property line. But there is, along property lines, you're gonna have swales. Everything's gonna be drained away from the house, your standard 5% for 10 feet, and it goes to these swales and will evacuate the water to
And that
south.
water will be going out to the east and the west?
The water will, once it leaves the homes themselves,
Mhm.
once it leaves the homes itself, generally, this is a two-basin, there's two stormwater basins here. It's roughly Sanctuary Rim Drive splits them, but all this drainage from here is gonna go south to this swale. All the drainage north is gonna be collected and taken to this detention pond and released to the north to Jackson Creek.
So the water flow coming to the south, will it be able to penetrate Jackson Creek currently?
In its
Boundary
current
line?
condition without being developed?
Mhm.
Currently, from the video we saw, yes, it was. They show, I believe, if it was the neighbors right in here,
Well, down in here.
right in here, they
Because
showed
as
us.
further it goes, the more water.
It
It was a pretty bad situation, for sure. But, you know, it's gonna be fixed with this. We're gonna take care of their drainage as well as ours, as Greg was saying.
Yeah,
So that'll be alleviated.
so we will be catching that flow and taking it directly west.
And there's no temporary access that you could give filing one that's closer during this 12 to 18-month time frame of construction between filing one and filing 5?
You know, unfortunately, we looked at it, they're gonna have access right at the roundabout. Preliminary grading shows, I mean, the way Glen Eagle is with its grades and the way we have to go downgrade to meet city standards, there's gonna be a wall back here, and that's why I'm hesitant to.
Where's the wall?
There's gonna be a wall right along Glen
I
Eagle
see.
here.
So they're really penned in.
So they would access direct, oh, I'm sorry, you know what, I should mention this. Okay, so between each cul-de-sac bulb in this product, we do have access tracks. And they're gonna be paved access tracks, so they can go cul-de-sac bulb to get out to Sanctuary.
We should have mentioned that, because that's one thing Jamie brought up, and we worked through, and it's one of the things that we didn't have originally, but we added that in. I know it's probably hard to see, but it is.
I can't hardly see any of these numbers, and I'm wearing my glasses.
Yeah, it's just connecting those cul-de-sacs, as you were pointing out there.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Okay.
It just connects those cul-de-sacs all together.
Yeah, make it bigger. Can you make it bigger?
That is the biggest it will go.
So where are these access points?
So
Oh,
you see these
right
tracks
here.
here? This is a utility and access
So you can
easement.
get out this way. How about at the top? Anything at the top? No.
Well, there's a big, huge slope, you wanna point to this area in here? Through that
Oh, yeah,
entire
this-
area, it drops, gosh.
10% some
Well,
areas.
I'm gonna say it drops 40 to 50 feet, that'd be a good guess. So we can't just go off of that ledge, and unfortunately, we're pinned there, we can't go down that huge slope.
And so
So
will
that's
they be
where-
pinned.
What's that?
I'm just worried about the residents who are eventually are going to live here at 55 plus, getting out. I see that helps to get here and here, then you have to come all the way back up.
Yeah, we have 2 points of access. I mean, luckily, there's no, I guess to understand better, like, I mean, we looked at the wildfire scenario, but I guess another situation, I mean, if there's one you think we should consider, we will. With the fuel of the fire, there's no trees up in this area. And I guess our thought was, you know, you go north and the evacuation route would go directly west where there's no fire fuel in case of a wildfire.
So I see that your little tracks on filing 1, I don't see them on 2 or 4 or 5 or whatever the red one is. I don't see them there, so just this one filing can go to the final, whatever that, I can't tell what that is because it's so longer oval shaped. The first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
And
What is
the-
that?
What is the oval shaped thing?
Mhm.
That's just like a circular drive, through there. Service the units, it's just kind of a enlarged cul-de-sac.
And no homes in there?
Yeah. You're right. So you're asking about this exact thing right here.
Right.
Can't- There's no homes in there, there's homes servicing off, there's some here that are fronted on that cul-de-sac. Some of these homes will have driveways onto that cul-de-sac, is that what you're asking?
Mhm. Okay, I have a really silly question. So are these tracks wide enough to drive a car on?
Emergency access only, we're not gonna let cars,
Right,
well, I guess
but if-
essentially they
Which
could.
tracks are we
Well,
talking?
she's asking about these tracks right here.
Correct.
I guess they could be cars in an emergency situation, yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, this is a public hearing item, so we'll open up to the public, to anyone who wants to speak. Do we have any comments from the public? Start over here, sir. Can you come up here, please, sir?
But I'm the guy that took the video of the floods coming down the hill and sent it to everybody.
Sir.
I'm telling you, that slope, we've had the 100-year.
Sir, your name?
My name is Tim Boyle.
And-
I live on 406 Saber Creek Drive. I back up to that hill, to that magic fence out there to the prairie dog town that they keep trying to blow them up with the dynamite, but they still haven't got rid of all of them. But anyway, I took the video out of it, and down that hill, we've had the 100-year rain coming down that hill 5 times since I've been in that house since 2001. And little times in between. Flood comes down through there. You said in your video, can you put your screen back up there for your emergency exit? You said something about that southwest corner emergency exit being between K and L. But what's the physical address that fits between K and L for that excess? What's that physical number on Saber Creek? Yes, ma'am.
It's
That-
434 and 420.
Okay. So that,
10-foot easement, by the way.
but so you're if I understood you, you got this little number 1 sitting down here in the southwest corner to be developed in number 1, and that other picture shows that there's a retaining wall in that number 1. But that picture shows the lake, it looking like it's up the hill on the other side of 5. But how are you gonna get across that retaining pond to that emergency exit between those 2 houses? If you're gonna try to come around there, how do you keep cars from not going into that driveway? How do you unchain and open that fire fence up that the fire department has to have a key to unlock that bar and safety wire to get their safety vehicles into that property off of Saber Creek? I don't know how you're gonna do that safely, let alone get anybody out of there if you had a fire. Who was there when the house over
Sir,
there?
this isn't a question and answer period.
Okay,
Please
But there
make your
was a
comment,
flash
we'll move
fire
on.
that was started by one of the contractors on Saber Creek in '01 that went from Saber Creek to Higbee Road. How many of you remember that fire? It went across that hill in 2.5 minutes. I watched it go. And you're talking about getting fire department in, getting people out. You don't have to have trees. That grass in there turns brown. Right now, you get a fire on there and a little wind and it'll move across that hill like it does in the rest of Colorado. So I'm really concerned about that common way and that swell you're talking about, that trail you're talking about along that fence to come across there and its accesses to Saber Creek Drive. And I don't know how you're gonna get it done.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening.
Next, Ms. Howe?
Ann Howe, Agate Creek. I also want to know how the access to Saber Creek is going to be accomplished. One of the commissioners suggested we just buy a house and tear it down, because at the planning meeting, we were told that that access area or that available area was, I think, 10 or 12 feet, was not sufficient for fire equipment. Now all of a sudden, miraculously, that's the answer. If you live at that end cul-de-sac in area 5, you're toast. As this gentleman said, you don't need trees. Grass fires occur in Colorado too. People are not gonna have an opportunity to get out, and emergencies equipment is not gonna get an opportunity to get in. So if they can put up where that easement is at that address, I'd love to see that. And I'd also like to know, yes, they did talk to the fire district. Did they talk to the residents? That's right where I live. If there's an emergency, we're all gonna be trying to get out. And I live on a very busy thoroughfare through Jackson Creek. You get 300 homes trying to exit, or half of that many. We're not gonna all get out. So again, it's up to you guys to approve or not approve this because of the safety of the residents. Also, the traffic engineering study on Baptist Road, level of service C. If your kid came home with a C and you knew he was gonna add 5 more classes to his class schedule, how would you feel about that? Thank you.
Additional comments? Sir?
I'm Mark Guido. I live at the house right next to where that access is going to go through. That's why I know it's a 10-foot easement, which is controlled by the City of Monument. And there's, right in the center of it, there's an electrical box. There's also a 5-foot, 6-foot drain that goes to the sewer for the back drainage over there. And I'm sure you guys already knew that. But I would be concerned about, there's only 10 feet of space. What do they do about the rest of it, you know? And I've heard discussions about wanting to make that like an emergency access road, but what I guess I don't understand is why it couldn't be an emergency access road to Higbee Road just for fire trucks and stuff, not for traffic right now, but to use it later if there is an emergency, to give people more of a way out and everything else. And the lady over here mentioned if you do use that as an emergency access road, you're gonna have ballards there. How are people gonna get through in an emergency? And we're all gonna be trying to get out too. So I just wanted to address that.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Bill Miller, 265 Saber Creek. I've lived there for 18 years, and I can tell you, these guys are in a pipe dream about this water. Because when they put the infrastructure in in phase 2 and 3, they didn't put enough pipes. It all comes straight down Saber Creek, or it goes right down that field. And I can vouch for the people that live on the west side of, and east, or north of Saber Creek. They were told by the builders, you guys gotta fix your own problem, and I don't know how many times these people replaced their dirt in their backyard on their own. I've listened to these gentlemen. I know they've got a lot of work involved. I used to be in a national real estate company. I was an executive vice president of a real estate national company. And what I'm hearing from this group right tonight is there's too many ifs, too many maybes. They've all started with 2,000 sticks. We're gonna build this type of thing. And everything is a maybe. There's nothing concrete. I agree with you, Jeff, that there's no real business plan. I didn't hear anything coming out of a business plan. It's all maybe. If I were you, I would delay this thing until you get access to Higbee Road. Work with the county and get that straightened away, because Saber Creek is not the savior. You're gonna create a traffic problem and I don't know if these gentlemen have ever been in a wildfire like we had here up in Black Forest, but I know for a fact, I was called at 8:30 at night, said, if it comes across a roller coaster, you're all toast. Because that fire was moving 1 foot per second. That's a wildfire. People don't have a chance to get out. Well, we'll just move them out of here. No, that's not an answer. That's not an answer, gentlemen. So I implore you, delay this thing until you get something absolutely business plan, concrete, and assured that everybody's gonna be safe. It's just not about their residents, because outside that residence are us, the rest of us, the rest of Monument. We are Monument. They're trying to add on to Monument. We want to protect ourselves. This is our opportunity, people. And I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Sir?
Well, my name is Brad Smith. I live in Promontory Point, and my property does back up to Glen Eagle. So I think I would welcome the development. I appreciate the developer addressing a lot of the issues that have been brought up. And my concern is with the increased traffic, with the build out of Sanctuary Point and the increased traffic flow that is going up Glen Eagle. If you go ahead with this project, at this time, you can also have increased traffic flow simultaneous to that. So with all the other issues that have been addressed with safety, with fire access, I think a phased approach needs to happen to this. And I would also ask the board to re-engage with El Paso County. The access to Higbee Road is paramount before this project moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Allison Thompson, I'm 280 Saber Creek Drive. I have to agree with my neighbor Bill that this is very vague. Gentlemen, you have a hard job, I understand. But I am looking at my neighbors, and not once during your presentation did you ever acknowledge them. I thought that was really unfortunate. I think it's too vague, and we need to delay this until you get something in writing, which we don't have. And that's really all I have to say. I would appreciate something in writing. There's just too many ifs, ands, or buts, or, and let me ask the traffic pattern. Glen Eagle Drive is a 2-lane road, and we're gonna send trucks down these 2-lane roads where the posted speed is 30. And the people that I drive with on that 2-lane road drive a little bit faster. So I'm concerned about Glen Eagle Road being a thoroughfare when it's just a 2-lane road. Higbee seems to be a much better, sturdier road for trucks. We just had our pavements redone in our neighborhoods. Do the trucks affect the weight of the trucks affect that? How will it wear on the road? I really would like an answer for that, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir?
My name's Bill McCormick. I moved into Jackson Creek in March. It's 629 Saber Creek. Couple things that were said. The drainage in the swale along their south property, it's going down a 3 to 5% grade, if I heard you right?
Currently.
Okay. How are you going to slow the water on that grade? Because normally you want to be under 1% to keep it a decent flow velocity so you don't have erosion and stuff like that. I heard you said you were going to meander. So what kind of freeboard are you going to have on this so that if we get hit with a 100-year event like you talked about, what kind of freeboard can handle maybe the increased runoff about that? On your detention pond, you said probably drain in about 72 hours. That sounds about right to me. What happens if you get hit with multiple events? What's the emergency overflow path? Is it going down through Jackson Creek on the streets? And if so, how deep is that water going to be in the streets? Another comment that was made, and I haven't seen your plans. I don't know where all the utilities are in this area, but it was mentioned that the sanitary sewer downstream of your property is going to have to be upsized. Is that in Saber Creek, or is that outside in the open space to the west? And if it is down Saber Creek, what's the plan for safety and for emergency access for the residents of Jackson Creek? I think that's all I've got right now.
Thank you, sir.
I would like an opportunity to see your drainage studies, if at all possible. Unfortunately, I'm too new to the area, so I'm still learning the ropes of how everything operates around here.
Thank you, sir. Additional comments, sir?
Hi, my name's Larry Adams. I sent you all. My biggest concern is using the hiking area as an emergency in and out. I'd encourage you to drive down Saber Creek and imagine a fire truck trying to turn into that emergency exit. It won't happen without destroying somebody's property. Also, last comment is building on your comment about trying to evacuate our area of Jackson Creek. We have one access, and that's down Kitchener Way. And trying to get all of those people out. But Kitchener's gonna be a problem. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Any additional comments, ma'am?
I'm Allison Catalano. I live at 17580 Colonial Park Drive. Just shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to talk a little bit about the connection to Higbee Road. I know there's a lot of Jackson Creek folks here, but I just wanted to speak to the connection to Higbee Road concern that seems to have come up quite a lot. I think we can all be glad that the developers are not planning to put 990 houses on this property, so I appreciate the reaching out to the community that these developers have done. I didn't feel like we got the same courtesy from the folks that developed Sanctuary Point personally, and I hope that you guys push back a lot on the fire access for Sanctuary Point. That little development that went through tonight that nobody talked about, they're in the trees. So I'm kind of wondering why the grasslands are getting a lot more wildfire concern than the actual wildfire area. But anyway,
So what I wanted to talk about was in terms of developing the area towards Higbee Road, if there are houses to be built there, I would ask that you consider in the future matching the density to the existing neighborhoods. It sounds like they addressed that point matching to Jackson Creek. And I think Phil touched on it, and I'm gonna hold you to that you said 2.5 acres along the 2.5 acre borders. The El Paso County Master Plan had 4 policies that were relevant to this, 3 policies and a goal. 6.1.3, encouraging development contiguous, compatible with previously developed areas. 6.1.8, incorporation of buffers or transitions between areas of varying use. 6.1.14, supporting development complementing unique environmental conditions and established land use character. And goal 6.1A, encouraging patterns of growth and development complementing the region's unique natural environments and reinforcing community character. The areas of higher density could be built further to the west, as we've seen kind of in the picture that has the bigger site plan of the whole area. And that, of course, would be in keeping with that transition from the more rural 2.5 acre lots that surround that entire region to the more the denser developments. That, of course, would mitigate some of the traffic impacts on Higbee Road. And we were just talking with one of the traffic engineers. They were looking at speeds. If you guys have driven on Higbee lately, speeds up to 60 to 85 miles an hour that the teenagers are hitting on that road. So that should raise some eyebrows. So we're talking about the Glen Eagle Drive connection to Higbee Road. I urge you to think about, and I know this is a county issue, but I urge you to think about connecting to Fairplay instead of connecting someplace between Colonial Park Drive and Fairplay. Next time you drive on Higbee, look at the area between Fairplay and Colonial Park Drive. There's a blind curve there, which in the wintertime is treacherous, and not just teenagers, but a lot of people end up in the ditch there. And this current suggestion of paving the existing farm road that's there, the access point to that farm road is right at that blind curve. So they're gonna have to, they talked about the fire department requiring them to harden that and making an emergency egress. And that, to me, raises concerns that, oh, well, we've hardened it, we've made it emergency egress, so let's just pave it and turn it into the existing Glen Eagle, or let's connect Glen Eagle right there. And I can see the arrows are already pointing that direction, even though the 2006 plan had the major road going to the west of the rock outcropping and the Higbee Road curve. So I would strongly urge you to think about that. I'm gonna be going to whatever the El Paso County meeting is and urging them to do that as well. And then, of course, the properties that are built adjacent to that road would benefit from being planned at the same time as that road, instead of having the road and the farm road that is existing there now runs right up against 2.5 acre properties, which doesn't make sense to put a big giant extension to Glen Eagle Drive right up against 2.5 acre property lines right there. So these are the sort of considerations that will affect the future. The Planning Commission, what wasn't mentioned is that there was a lot of discussion about this issue during the Planning Commission meeting, and one of the commissioners said, can we just make it contingent for approval on this, that you match the existing and you don't have that major road be right there? And of course, that didn't happen. But I wanted to make sure that you knew about that, and the commissioner that said that said, please make sure to put it in the minutes, because we want to be able to refer to this later on. And that is everything I have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to comment, ma'am?
I'm Sue Peppin at 16226 Hobson Place. Mark Guido, I'm glad he showed up because he's right. The access between 434 and 420 is very small. It's got the electrical box right on the side of the road. In addition, there's a drainage problem under the road because when you drive, there's always a big dip in the road, and Triview still hasn't fixed that. So there are issues in that area. And the water does run down Saber Creek, and it ends up in a retention pond. And as far as the 100-year flood, we've seen this more than, in the 16 years I've lived here, it's been more than once, where it just, the water runs down and floods, even after large snowstorms. The other thing is, we have 2 access points, 434, and then one at 280 and 294 Saber. Those have always been earmarked to be trailheads. They've never, in the 16 years I've lived there, they've never once been said it's going to be used for an access point for a future development, including the previous builders. They were working with the previous homeowners association to make them trailheads, because they were going to have trails along the whole property line. So as far as, you know, if you guys can delay the vote until this access point has been determined, you know, build a dirt road to where the schools might be. There's got to be some other way than coming through Saber Creek. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment? Right, seeing none, we'll let the applicant rebuttal if you would like.
Okay. Tried to take good notes. The first one is on the stormwater along the property line that you did show us a video. Do you want to address that one and how we're going to take care of that?
Yes. So, I apologize if I was a little vague on the stormwater. I don't know if this meeting is if I go in depth on detail, but this may cover, there's a lot of questions about the stormwater, so I'm gonna go, it's probably gonna cover everybody's question. So, to be more clear and to get a little more technical on what we're doing with the stormwater, that's fine if we can do, yeah, that plan's fine. So, on that tract, along the south boundary line, what we're gonna do is, this is a defined swale. This defined swale is gonna cover, it's gonna be your standard swale, but yes, it will have freeboard. Typically, we go with a 1-foot freeboard. For the 1-foot freeboard, what that is if you have the 100-year storm event, we go 1 foot higher to cover above the 100-year storm event. So in addition, as this, with the steep slopes and going from east to west, there is a velocity issue and there's a lot of scour issues out there with the type C soils. So what we did as a preliminary design, and we're kind of going to do a step pool through here with boulder drops. Step pool, real briefly, quickly, it's if you envision maybe like a 12 to 24 inch boulder drop, drops into a pool 5 to 10 feet long, settles out the water, and then it continues along the way. So what this does is dissipates some of the energy and adds a little more storage in the area. On top of that, we understand that like as water comes through, I mean, having that additional storage area is very important. So we have kind of interlaced this area. We looked at additional pools in those areas that were like 120 feet. So we're gonna pull out a little bit to give it, we'll call it floodplain storage, even though this is not floodplain. We'll call it more storage areas. So water will go out, settle out, create more storage area for those bigger storm events. Also with these swales, you're like, once a development happens, once there's a swale, you're gonna get nuisance water. And that's from irrigation, whatever it may be. And what this does is cause a trickle flow down these swales. This swale is gonna be dry in any event. But during like the typical summer seasons when people are watering, you're gonna have a trickle flow, and with these soils, it will erode away. So we have a low flow channel that we design on the bottom of this and fortify the embankment so it does not do a head cut to start cutting down and taking sediment from the east and taking it to the west. So we actually have looked at quite a few options in there and gave a lot of thought, because this is kind of an expensive proposition to put this swale in on that south side and the beautify. So we looked at all different scenarios to amend with the landscaping to take care of the stormwater requirements. The flooding that you're all seeing going down south to Jackson Creek, there's really not a defined swales. Am I correct? I mean, most of the areas I saw did not have a defined swale. So water is sheet flowing across there, and with with the roughness coefficient of the grasses, it's not slowing it down and it's rolling onto that property. With our swales, I mean, as this water comes down, I mean, there's gonna be areas we're gonna have rock fortification, it's gonna get a higher roughness coefficient, it's gonna cut down the velocities, slow it down, get it in the swale, and shoot it to the west. As you may go to the west and as you get to the pond, yes, there are walls there. I apologize, you know, that's kind of a place where there is walls there, but that is also gonna be a boulder drop. So that's a channelized flow coming across there. We do a cascading boulder drop into the pond itself. So to create kind of more aesthetically looking pond rather than your standard pond with, you know, you dig a hole and you throw grass in it. So you got a boulder drop coming in there, it drops in there, the pond fills up. The pond does not release directly south. So where it exits here is the pond takes your 100-year flow, it fills up. We also have 1 foot of freeboard on that pond also to accommodate a little more water. This water is gonna flow up, it is now gonna backflow onto that cul-de-sac. That cul-de-sac is gonna double as a road and the ultimate overflow, or a little bit next to the cul-de-sac too. We channelize that flow to the tract. Now there's a lot of confusion on the tract, but the current plat shows this tract being 20 feet wide. And this is by just the plat that we have that's been on file. So I know 10 feet's been mentioned, but there's 20 feet wide, and yes, there's a 48-inch concrete storm sewer underneath this that goes under the road, which probably is settling under Sabre Creek. I agree with that. It's a flared end section now that just catches the water, whatever water gets to it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna drop a Type D inlet. It's basically a giant box inlet, giant crate, big enough to take all our flows from the overflow from the pond. It's gonna drop it into that grate. It's gonna go into that 48-inch pipe, and it's gonna pipe it across into the existing system to the south, which is already sized to take that upstream flow. So with that grate, it's gonna be an H20 rated grate. So that H20 rated grate is okay for cars, it's okay for fire equipment. So they'll be able to come off the cul-de-sac, cross that grate, and what we're gonna do is have all-weather surface on our access easements, our emergency access and safety, I should call it emergency access roads. So you're gonna have an all-weather surface, whether it's, you know, it's granular, whether it's asphalt millings, but it's gonna be a stabilized surface, which you're gonna be able, at a reasonable grade, that cars and emergency vehicles can access that without bottoming out, without having to have a Jeep to go over a curb. It's gonna be a smooth transition from north to south. Yes, it is tight, I agree with that. We got 3 utilities in there, we got emergency access on top of there, coming through there. So, the drainage to the south, so once the drainage overflows, the water goes down and heads south. The situation where you have the dual 100-year events, which we all know happen quite a bit in Colorado, what we do is, the water in the pond, it takes a little more water, it's stage release to the south. Once we get into final engineering, what we do is we look at road capacities on the south end. So we're gonna take a look at seeing the road capacities. All roads, pretty much anywhere in any city, are designed to take the 100-year flow within the curb line or a little bit above the curb line, top of the curb line. We'll take a look at that, and then the major flows, which is the double hundreds coming through there, and see what happens when it goes up and encroaches onto the actual property. So, because I mean, from the curb line, you're sloped up to the house, is there capacity in there? That will be looked at with a final engineering study. Can I talk about access?
Yeah, that's actually some of the next things. So.
Okay, let me just finish on access too. And I guess I didn't want to create confusion on the access here. So the access, we have 4 accesses on this site. The access to the west is 1. So when filing 1 is developed, filing 1 has its accesses from the property. It also has, then it has 3 emergency accesses to get to county roads. It's got down Glen Eagle, it's got east through Sanctuary Point. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So with filing 1, once filing 1's developed, all this tannish area will be developed. So they'll have access up to Sanctuary Rim Drive. They can go directly east. They can go directly east through Sanctuary Point. They can go south through Glen Eagle Drive, and then they can go west and to this emergency access. So there's gonna be 3 accesses with filing 1. That's gonna be the same for filing 2, and the amenity center's filing 3. Then once it goes to filing 4, we add a 4th access, and that's the one coming on the back side of the hill here, and that draws you back to Glen Eagle Drive and connects up here. So you have 3 emergency accesses on 1, 2, and 3, and a 4th one added on filing 4. And the emergency accesses will be all-weather surfaces, consisting typically of like asphalt millings or some stabilized surface that is rated for fire truck use and emergency vehicle use. With this access here, bollards was discussed with Jamie at Fire Metro District. We talked about wire, we talked about removable bollards. He does not want to Knox lock these. He'd rather have them something that residents could remove in an emergency situation, but we did talk about doing a Knox box there, but he'd prefer something that, you know, quick and easy, residents can do and unlatch it. So.
That was next, let's talk about the width.
The width?
The width of the easement.
So you got a 20-foot wide tract right here. The road surface here, per his letter, I believe, was 12 feet wide here for the road surface. But the other road surfaces here is 20 feet. Road surface emergency access up here is also 20 feet.
Did you have a clarification question, or do you want to wait till?
Cover any other questions you might have, and we've already had our public comment period.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go through and try to highlight what hasn't been answered so far. The next one I see, I think, was Ms. Howard asked about the level C. And John, if you need to explain more, you can come up, but it's not like grading in school, C is bad. It's actually functioning intersection, correct?
Correct.
So it is confusing, you know, what's that?
I-25 is a D.
No.
And we're going to be dumping twice as much.
Ms. Howe?
Twice as much traffic on.
Sir, go ahead.
We're having a conversation here. You
It's,
ask a
this is not a conversation. Public comment period is over. Please finish with your rebuttal so we can move forward.
Well, I think that was it with that. So just so everybody knows, that's not, C doesn't mean bad, okay? It means it's functioning just fine. D and F, not good, okay? Bollards you addressed, the water, stormwater, obviously a lot of things with that. A lot of people are using the word business plan for Higbee Road. And maybe Jennifer, at some point you can come up and address this as well, that, you know, we try to get emergency access to Higbee. County says no, okay? So we try to do that. For phase 1, it's not justified to build a road to Higbee, okay? I know a lot of people maybe disagree with that, but it's Glen Eagle functions to handle that traffic, period, okay? In the future, Planning Commission brought this up as well and said, we're not gonna let you build another lot past phase 1 until you connect to Higbee, and we said, absolutely. I mean, that would be a no-brainer. So when we get done with phase 1, we cross over, we will build that connection to Higbee. At that time, the county will not let us do that until Higbee is improved as well. There has to be a plan in place for that as well. It's actually a little bit out of our part. The only part that's ours is that the developer will have to assist with that, fund that, put money up, things like that. But it's up to the county, Tri-View, Town of Monument to actually design that and do all that. It's not actually our responsibility, but we can help fund and give monies towards it, if that makes sense. Traffic, hopefully we addressed that enough. The phased approach is what we're going to do. And you stop me if I'm missing some of these. There's a lot of talk about, I think, just in general about it being too vague. The next step is final engineering CDs where we dig into all the great details. We're not at that point yet, okay? We've thought about that. We've had conversation. We're trying to address those. But in the next step is when all that stuff gets final engineered. This is just what's called preliminary engineering, which I'm sure you guys have seen this before in other projects. It's a preliminary level. Doesn't mean we can't have answers and directions, but we don't have it all absolutely 100% concrete. That is the next step where we get that all done. Oh, go ahead, jump in.
Yeah. There was one thing on traffic and sanitary sewer. So Glen Eagle Drive, just so everyone's aware, according to El Paso's master plan, it's a major thoroughfare north-south. If you look at their master plan, it actually goes and extends up and connects north of Higbee, and that's going to be the parallel road to Jackson Creek Parkway on the next tier over. So that's as part of El Paso's master plan. There was, I had a note about, safety. The owner, we developed, he contracted out, got a wildfire mitigation plan, and that's currently been implemented, and they're working on wildfire mitigation currently on the entire site, not just this area. Sanitary sewer upsizing, so, Triview Metro District stated that they are gonna take care of the sanitary sewer upsizing. And what that consists of, there are 2 areas, I believe, that they had where the sanitary sewer was undersized. One was in a open space where they're gonna run a parallel sewer. One may be in, I guess when Saber Creek, when it bends down and then starts jogging to the east again, it's in that area right past their treatment facility. If you're all familiar with their treatment facility, what we're gonna do is in their treatment facility, we're gonna be adding an additional storage tank for the flushing of their water, when they're washing their filters for their water system. It gets held in the storage tank and released on off-peak hours, so it doesn't tax the system downstream. So we're gonna be funding and working with Triview to get that system in, to upsize that one pipe in the road, and to add a parallel pipe in the tract more to the east.
Just a couple more.
Okay.
The drainage studies are public information, somebody wanted that, and they're online and can be pulled off and looked at that. Some of the things were brought up about the north side matching density of Higbee Estates. We will come back with that sketch plan after phase 1. We'll amend that sketch plan. At that time, we'll talk densities and all these other things on the north side. At that point, we are open, developers open to matching 2.5 acre lots along Higbee Estates. It's premature for us to even promise that, but we will address all that, and we'll be back in front of you amending that sketch plan when we get to that point. Okay? And it'll be a public hearing and all of that. I think the emergency access to Higbee has been being talked about being paved. It's actually, you want to talk about the material?
Yes. So the emergency access to Higbee, that's gonna be completed in filing 1. So here, we're gonna put in the roundabout. We're gonna have a emergency turnaround here, and then we're also gonna have a 20-foot paved, or 20-foot all-weather surface, compacted all-weather surface, typically consisting of like asphalt millings, which is gonna extend along that current service road up to Higbee. This is done in filing 1, and this is for emergency traffic.
I think I addressed most of them. Okay.
Okay. At this point, we'll bring it back to the board for further discussion. Any other questions or discussion or motion?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. You just mentioned the emergency access to Higbee, but yet you were saying the county didn't allow you to connect to Higbee, so could you clarify on that point?
Please. Sure. They allowed emergency access. When we did our HOA meetings, one of the concerns was construction traffic. So we went to the county and asked them for emergency and a construction access to redirect the traffic instead of going south down Glen Eagle to head north and take all the construction traffic to Higbee. And the county denied us access to Higbee for the construction traffic and would only give us emergency access to Higbee.
It is emergency access.
Emergency access only.
So, okay, so obviously, fire crews, whatever needed to get there could get through there. Would that be an emergency exit if they needed to exit people as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And that, one really quick addition to that. So that Higbee Road access can't be connected to until Higbee Road is improved. Did I hear that correctly?
No,
No.
we
No.
can attach that from day 1
For emergency access.
for emergency access only.
Is there a step in between construction traffic and emergency, like residential or just normal traffic?
No.
No, I mean, we talked about in like any kind of access we can get up to Higbee, quite honestly. I mean, we tried to push for an access to make it, construction was the key one, but right now, what we're gonna do is, the way we're gonna design this road is we'll have it for emergency vehicles, and then also make sure it's good for pedestrian or from civilian vehicles, so there's no bottoming out or some major humps or anything they gotta get over. But it's gonna be designed to take emergency vehicles and emergency access for residents, but it's emergency access.
And that's going north off Glen Eagle toward Higbee.
That is correct.
And that is not impeded like the other one by some narrow choke point with utilities. It's a full 20-foot access.
That is correct.
Okay.
One thing I just want to add to that, I think it's important, because from Jamie's standpoint, you know, yes, he likes that we're connecting the Higbee for emergency access, but he was more concerned with trying to get people south and southwest getting out of here because of what we talked about before, all the fuel and everything is that way.
Correct.
He's like, yeah, I mean, we can have it at Higbee, but that's probably where all the fires are gonna be coming from. We wanna get people south. So he really pushed us on that corner access we've been talking about. It's on a 20-foot easement to make sure that was emergency access. That's what he really wanted.
You had made a comment, I just wanted to get definition. You had said, understanding phase one, I get it, and it's hard to justify going straight through to Higbee, but you said on filing number 2 that the planning commission said, hey, now we wanna talk about doing a road through, no?
No, it's phase 2.
Phase two.
So, okay, we can build phase 1 as is, but when we go across, you know, outside of this and go north,
Right.
they said they're not gonna let us, you know, their recommendation was they're not gonna let us build anything over there until we connect to Higbee.
Okay,
Okay.
and then just a hypothetical, if for some reason the town and tribe you got involved and Higbee became part of this region, I think your entity is financially, fiscally, community responsible to participate in
Correct.
working to make that a win.
Yes, absolutely.
Whether it happened tomorrow or month or year, whatever.
Yes, and one of the things just
Okay.
to throw out there is that, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But we also feel that we shouldn't be the only ones to solve that entire problem.
No, it is, I fully, it's a group problem, I
It's
understand
a group for
that.
everybody to help fund that,
I
but we
get
are
that.
100% committed to helping fund that.
And to confirm that I remember the presentation right, you're talking all of phase 1, 131 homes?
300.
300.
130 acres.
130 acres, okay, 300.
And it will be 12 to 18 months before that development is done to move on to get to Higbee Road.
The connection to Higbee will be longer than 12 to 18 months.
It will be longer than
Yes.
12 to 18 months.
Yeah. 12 to 18 months is like filing 1 and 2. You only have filing 1 and 2. We're guesstimating those 2 filings to be 12 to 18 months. Yeah.
So the time frame to get from that filing and get connected to Higbee Road, how long is that construction time frame? Would you say? But maybe just a wild guess.
I would say a few years.
A few years. A few years?
Well, you're not, are we talking about a real road or the emergency access?
A real road.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For the real road.
Yeah, well, that would be in a future phase.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board? At this point, I will look for a motion. Ordinance number 28-2019 fails for a lack of motion. Ordinance number 29-2019, an ordinance authorizing the exchange of deeds between the town and Nathaniel and Jennifer Brady to clarify and affirm the respective waters of the town and the Bradys. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. I apologize for my failing voice. I had a really bad cold last week. Sorry to hear that. I'm not contagious anymore, I don't believe. The ordinance you have before you at 29-219 is a necessary precursor to the Willow Springs annexation. As you know, the town recently approved the Willow Springs annexation, and as part of that annexation, the town obtained the subsurface water rights to the Willow Springs area. As Mr. Crossa, who is the lead on this.
Mr. Rivera, will you hang on just a moment? We'll get.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
Can you ask the officers to move them along?
Or Mr.
Mr. Mayor, can we close the doors possibly, please?
Officer Koski, can you move them along, or thank you. Okay.
I'll start again. This ordinance arose as a, related to the Willow Springs annexation. As this board knows, the town recently annexed Willow Springs through Willow Springs annexations. There were 2 Willow Springs annexations. As part of those annexations, the town acquired the groundwater rights, subsurface groundwater rights to the Willow Springs area. As Mr. Crossa was working through the town's incorporation of those water rights into its water portfolio, he came across some inconsistencies in the chain of title regarding the parcel you have before us. And so therefore, as a way to rectify and clarify these inconsistencies in the chain of title, he put together the following 2 deeds, the quick claim title deed as well as the bargain sale deed. And essentially what that does is it clears up some inconsistencies in the mapping, and it makes very clear who owns what parcels and who owns what water rights underneath.
Okay.
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
The whole thing?
Yes.
Okay. So
Can you
basically,
talk into here? Yeah, I
sorry
can't
about
hear
that.
half of what you're saying.
It was off, that's why.
Oh, okay, there we go.
So this is part of the Willow Springs annexation. Basically, as part of the Willow Springs annexation, the town acquired a very large area of land. And so also, as part of that acquisition of land, the town also acquired the subsurface water rights. For this area, these are Denver Basin water rights. And so what that basically means is if you own the surface of the land, then you have access rights to the subsurface waters. As Mr. Crossa was basically incorporating those subsurface water rights into the town's water portfolio as part of the annexation, he came across some inconsistencies in chain of title. It's basically some maps that didn't make sense, I think is the best way to phrase it. And so what you have before you here is essentially 2 the town is trading deeds with the landowner, and the purpose of that is to rectify rectify and clarify any problems with maps. And so what this essentially does is it, from now and for posterity, it makes very clear what portions of the land the town owns and what portions of the land these private property owners hold, and also makes clear the corresponding subsurface water rights.
Perfect, I got it now, thank you.
Okay, this is an ordinance, so it's a public hearing item. Would anybody like to speak on this topic for or against? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion or a motion.
I move to pass ordinance number 29-2019, an ordinance authorizing the exchange of deeds between the town and Nathaniel and Jennifer Brady to clarify and affirm the respective water rights of the town and the Bradys.
My second.
We have a motion and multiple seconds. Ms. Hogan?
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Kootman?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. At this time, we will take a 5-minute recess and continue after that.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. You should, I was talking. That's a hot topic.
I saw a couple of looks like, what?
I think they're confusing between construction access and what do you call it, emergency. I wonder if you talk to Commissioner Williams. What was interesting about when I first moved into Jackson Creek, maybe one of the first times, when we had a big storm, the mud and everything would come down, but once they built it out,
Yeah.
all that stopped.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any more issues with
Well, when you get a chance. you know, the temperature, I'm not getting 6 foot of water like a big that's for construction. I'll find out where it drain it out to the street. Everybody's house is better off than that. That's something towns do. Oh, yeah, I've got a drainage problem. Our neighbor's drain points towards our driveway. And so we saw when I bought the house, the whole middle section of our driveway was a different color gray cement because it was new. Now we've got a big crack like this tall, all the way across the middle section of our driveway because the way the developer put in the drain to the neighbors, it not only has ruined our driveway in the middle, we keep postponing it because we gotta get that drain redirected, it's our neighbors. It's also killing our trees on the side of the house. We've got to get that drainage pointed towards the street. I don't have a clue why it's pointed towards our side in our driveway. We've just put up with it since 2005.
We got lucky because we were having the same thing. The water was one storm was coming in and it started to fill up and almost came to our window wells. And so but the house next to the lot next to us that we built, we went to the developer and we asked him if the drainage on the side was done. He said, I haven't done anything about it. I said, okay, let me ask you this. When is that house getting built? He says, oh, we'll build it, next month or something. I said, when you do that, you're gonna have to grade your yard. Make sure you grade between the two straight away. And they did it. I was surprised they were doing it.
Those are those tubes that look like this, about this big, and they're kind of riveted. Yeah, that's what's draining right on my driveway, on my neighbor's French drain.
That's where we get all our road
Yeah.
Be the one. No.
There's gotta be a reason.
Oh, no, I was gonna ask the same question. Hey, the guys that were up there, do you know them? Okay, all right.
They live probably further north of me.
Yeah, I think they were all on that, what's that one road that borders right against it? Yeah, are you on Saber Creek?
Yeah, but it circles around.
Right, so you're on the more south end. Yeah, got it.
Should be able to do it right.
Well, it depends on how many houses they want to put up in what time frame, because the contractors that finish out my office, we're in such a rush to get it done.
No one's gonna touch that
They
thing.
try to street and race to get it done, hand me the keys on December 22nd, and I walk in there, and the place was a freaking mess. So from there to March, they had to redo all the framing around the windows, they had to put down the flooring, but it's still puzzle.
Chief Owens? No. Chief Owens?
They had to repaint, because they kept it this. They had to do crown molding.
I move we had an executive session.
They're like this.
May as well just get it all done at once, right? Bang it out. Oh, good Lord. Right.
No, but what they want to do is wonderful. It's done. 10:05.
Not gonna happen.
Can you beat it?
I already missed bedtime.
Yeah, not bedtime. It's not common.
We're back in session. Now move on to resolutions. Resolution number 32-2019, a resolution authorizing the town manager to sign the contract with Plan Tools LLC for professional services. Ms. Jones.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. The resolution before you tonight, or the first resolution before you tonight, authorizing the town manager to sign the contract. This has been a long time coming. Hopefully you all remember back in November of last year, you approved a resolution allowing us to submit an application to DOLA for a grant application. In the summer, in June, the town was awarded that $100,000 grant from DOLA. And so tonight we have gone through the RFP process, reviewed the applicants, made a selection, and then there's a contract. So that is what's before you tonight for the resolution 32, I believe. 31.
Questions?
32.
Questions from the board?
Just a congratulations.
Yes,
Thank you.
congratulations.
We're very excited to get started on the project, so.
Excellent.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Of course.
Is there a motion for this resolution?
Motion for resolution number 32, 2019, a resolution authorizing the town manager to sign a contract with Plan Tools LLC for professional services to update the town's land development regulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Romanella?
Yes.
The motion passes, that resolution passes 7-0. Resolution number 33-2019, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Town of Monument and El Paso County Department of Transportation concerning the exchange of maintenance on roadway segments jurisdictional to each entity. Mr. Thornish.
Yes. Good evening, Board. Resolution in front of you tonight is to approve an IGA with El Paso County Department of Public Works. This is an IGA that typically comes up about every 2 years. It's an exchange of roadway segments due to having several sections of roads that are within our town boundaries, but we don't have jurisdiction over. In order to, both of us, to address efficiencies in our snowplow routes, we exchange these same roads approximately every 2 years. I think we're a little behind this year. I was kind of expecting this earlier this summer, but it just came to us recently. The contract is based on segments and the mileage or the distance that's covered, and it's worked very efficiently since we started doing these approximately 10 to 12 years. I can't remember the exact time. Any questions concerning this IGA agreement?
Questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 33-2019, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Town of Monument and the El Paso County Department of Transportation concerning the exchange of maintenance on roadway segments jurisdictional to each entity.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Romanella?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Resolution number 34-2019, a resolution awarding a contract to D2C Architects for the design of a new public works facility to be built on town-owned land at the intersection of Mitchell Avenue and Cynthes. Mr. Thornish.
Excuse me, I did have a question on
Yes.
the contract itself. I'm wondering.
Can we
if-
do the presentation first, and then we'll get to the questions?
Absolutely.
Yes, contract, the resolution you have in front of you is for the first step in trying to get a new public works facility built. This has been a 3 to 3.5 year project of ours, trying to move it up on the priority list every year. We had in our budget this year $300,000 to do a design. Once the design is complete, that will determine the ultimate size of the building and the price that we're gonna have to go out and look at financing for. So this is the first step. We went through a lengthy process of having several of our on-call engineers and architects come in, give presentations. Some of them had to come back and give a second presentation. They were all thoroughly vetted. We, as staff, had toured multiple facilities around the state that were similar size, put together a master list of what we think needed to be in there. presented that to all the entities involved, and through all this process, D2C Architects came out at the top end, the highest part. So are there any questions concerning this contract?
Trustee Clark.
I was just wondering if on paragraph 117, the identification of representatives should include the town manager and the title of Director of Public Works instead of naming you personally? And also 1.18, where the town manager and town attorney should be required to review the architect's submittals, and that all final approvals should be also subject to the Board of Trustees.
Well, that first section on 117, I believe my name was just put in there because when they were drawing this contract up, I was the point of contact for that.
I know, I just don't want you to have to take that legal liability in this contract.
Well, I'm sure that's a minor change that.
Yep, it's just a minor change.
Okay. And 118, addition to owner's rep, we required review architect submittals.
Just the
Same
town.
thing there, we can list the title or name. Does it? Perfect.
Thank you for making those changes.
And just for your information, the architect is present here tonight, and the town attorney has reviewed this contract at length.
Okay. Additional questions?
I want to clarify, and really, I guess, confirm that the direction that's being given to the architect is the following or in alignment with the board's initial direction to you to seek 3 different options as well as 3 different price points for this particular facility. What I don't want to see is, a $300,000 bill for an architect in one mock-up saying, this is what you get, this is what it costs, which really is counterproductive to what the board initially granted you a sizable amount of money to explore. So that would be
Yes.
A, I want to make sure that direction's given is very clear. B, really want to highlight again or question the legality of directing or spending $300,000 of taxpayer money to direct. You're being specific on the land that we want this designed on. The land that you're referring to was specifically earmarked and paid for by 2A funds, which Public Works is not a permitted use of that. We have not permitted that. There's been no direction given to say that that is definite and there's a way to do it. So at this point, we'd be directing $300,000 in design work to be done on a piece of land that you can't build this on.
Well, I would beg to differ with that. When this land was bought with 2A funding, it was bought back when we were looking at building a pretty sophisticated water reclamation facility.
Mhm.
And we bought that land because of the pipeline that borders the southern edge of that.
Correct.
That's how we were gonna receive that money. That whole process of reuse has changed dramatically ever since CSU came to us and wanted to take the sewer flows and provide us treated drinking water back. You're right, that was bought with 2A funding, but when you're looking at land that the town owns, that is a great asset to the town, whether it's we build a water treatment facility, a public works facility, I think those are very effective means of utilizing town-owned facilities. And to look at funding something from a 2A standpoint, if we need to, and again, that's gonna be a board decision, then you can do everything from the interfund transfer to some kind of agreement to put that money back into 2A.
And I'm not saying you can't buy back
Yeah.
the land and repay the 2A fund. What I'm saying right now is, as of now and as that stands, that land is specifically and only legally able to be used for 2A purposes, not this. So that's something it might be cart before the horse is what I'm saying here.
Well, we should ask Mr. Rivera what you're.
I agree.
Yep.
I did not anticipate this question. I would need some time to research it, but I could get back with you. I didn't see this one coming. I understand the issue, and I can rephrase the issue, which is basically looking at how this particular parcel was obtained, how it was purchased, and whether the source of those funds, specifically 2A funds, limit its use for as a public works facility. I understand the question very clearly. I can't tell you the answer at this point. That wasn't on my radar screen at all. I apologize for not seeing that.
Should we wait till we get that answer?
Yeah, I think we should.
And just a little background on it, I was specific, I was here when we did the motion for the purchase of that land, and I was specific to include on the record what purposes that could be used for, and it was only 2A funds. So, this is a point of interest
Okay.
for me, as I anticipated something like this would happen.
Okay.
I don't personally believe that is gonna be a major issue. I mean, we have done interfund transfers in the past between funds for various amounts of reasons. This seems to be a minor issue in order to get the right land under, I guess, the right financing. To me, if we're gonna delay, you know, we're looking at already a 4 to 6 month design process. And the goal is to try to get this design done sometime early next year, and then space it out a little bit and look at whether we're gonna be able to finance that next year or roll into 2021. And I just think if we delay this, you know, how long do we delay it? Is this gonna go on for 3 to 4 months until some kind of other arrangements are made? I mean, I just think it's a minor thing, and we have precedent. We have done this before. We've transferred funds since I've been here for various things.
And
I would say without a design, we don't know how much of it even qualifies for 2A, because there are gonna be some uses in there.
The plan right now is, in addition to this project, if you, we didn't go into a lot of detail in the first workshop, but there is plans to drill well number 10. In order to drill well number 10, if we drill it on that site, which is most likely gonna be the site, that's gonna be a 2A project. If you drill the well, we're gonna have to build a small to medium treatment plant to treat that well. And that will also be on the property. Now, there's a lot of cost efficiencies if we do this treatment plant and put it up against this public works facility. And that would allow a lot of this project stuff, and the treatment plant would be 2A because it's a new source. You're treating a new source of water. Now, we didn't spend a lot of time on that yet because we haven't had our second budget workshop. But it's kind of the way I see it going down. It's the board's discretion, obviously, if you're gonna go for a delay on this to get more confirmation, but I would just recommend that we move forward at this time.
Well, my question to Trustee Koopman, what clarification are you looking for, please? I'm not sure.
I want to know the legalities, so specifically, I want to know if we are wasting $300,000 of taxpayer money on an architect for this specific piece of land,
Correct.
when this piece of land cannot be used for a public works facility as it stands now. We did explore the possibilities of utilizing this as a joint piece of land and opportunities to maybe do multiple projects on that. But the sole reason Monument owns this piece of land was for a water project. Now, if we're not gonna use it for the water project that we purchased it for, then we need to sell it. Whether we sell it to the town from the 2A assets, which is, standalone, from the 2A assets back to the town, and the town purchases it, and that's a budget item we wanna do for next year, we can look at that. But from the legalities of it, we were very specific on why we purchased this. So I don't wanna be throwing $300,000 on a design, which no doubt is site-specific. I'm not an architect, but I would imagine what you're designing for $300,000 is gonna have to do with the land, the size of the land, the location on the land, all those different components. We budgeted $300,000 for this architect work. I have every intent of doing that. We need to do that. We need to start looking at that. That's why I mentioned I want to see those 3 options. My concern is limiting it to this piece of land when we can't build on this land as it stands.
But the way this architecture would work, because we're looking at facility, could implant itself really to any geographical location based on, as long as it accommodates size and what have you. Am I correct?
The resolution. The resolution highlights a specific location. So if you take that out and say, begin architect work, don't include the 2A land, maybe that's a way to explore our answers, but also get your project started.
But now I had a part 2 question because I underlined that, does that town-owned land have to be there? We're designing a facility for Public Works, and I've got a question for our town manager, that there potentially might be something that would fit our desire and profile and size, but that needs to be investigated, which we totally deviate, still would give us a facility, but not on that. So I think we move forward with the design. I think we just take out for now that town-owned land and move forward, because whether we move, every time we put it off, it's gonna be another month, we still have to design something.
Can we ask the architect, do we need a specific piece of land to do?
Would the architect like to speak to this topic?
I'll keep it short. Eric Combs, D2C Architects Principal. So the first part of the design process really doesn't even start looking at the site. Our first effort is sitting down with Tom, the users of the facility, your Public Works Department, really trying to understand what are the programmatic elements of this facility. So how many offices do you need? How many bays do you need? How are these bays going to function? What is this facility going to do? You know, how does this impact or help your operations? And start to outline that process. So that process can occur simultaneous to Mr. Rivera looking at some of the legalities of this site. And then once we get into the process of understanding how many offices, how many restrooms, how many whatevers there are, then we can start to define how does that mass or that square footage allocate to a piece of property, whether that be this property or another piece of property that the town already has or owns. We can start to evaluate that and look at the different schemes or options as they become appropriate at that time. So I think, you know, going back to some earlier comment, I think it'd be behoove of the board to start that process, because while we're doing the programming planning part with Tom, you know, you guys can, and Mr. Rivera can start looking at some of that legal component, so you can run the process concurrently and not lose the time.
If we were to start that with you between now and October 7th, how much money into you would we be?
Yeah, not much. I mean,
Okay, would you be able to have this answer by October 7th completely? Would you be able to have a new resolution that would dial in any changes to rebuying, buying, co-sharing funds, and have this resolution nickel and dimed out to the word, or another one?
We won't be able to do that until we know how much of this is gonna be used for water.
We can move forward
Yeah.
tonight. The only thing that's gotta come out is built on town-owned land, intersection location.
Can we do that, Mr. Rivera, as far as just removing the site-specific verbiage?
Yeah, and then we can
And
move
and
forward.
then could we have another resolution on October 7th that would dial in what we need to do?
I think I would need more information in terms of basically what the plans are for that site, whether the site itself can accommodate both the well and the facility. And that's the first thing. I'm sure there's other bits of information I would need before I can make that opinion. But a combination facility, I think, depending on the size of the site, I think may work. But I'd like to know more about kind of what the plans are for the site. What I can do, though, is we can add some language to this particular contract before us that contemplates and maybe even draws out some of the timelines such that we could basically essentially to develop what the building would look like, and then make it very clear in the contract language, then maybe even put a hold there that at that point we have to decide where the building goes, and then modify those plans to accommodate the site that's selected. But my understanding from reading the contract and from Mr. Combs' description is that the first phase or first two phases are really very much just figuring out what this building is going to do. And then step 3, step 4 is kind of figuring out where it's going to be. But one of the things I do want to mention, and that I didn't see in the contract that I looked at was I did not see a particular mention of 3 mock-ups. To my mind, it contemplated basically just one. So I think we need to amend the contract for that reason as well.
We do have that covered in our proposal that defines multiple scheme options, so that your concern of schemes and what they look like is already addressed or covered.
I just don't recall seeing that in the language of the contract.
Yeah, I didn't recall seeing that either.
Okay.
I just from my observation, I think there's a couple different visions. Obviously, the building, but now there's also having well and not looking short-term, looking long-term. But again, I think it can still start now, just taking out the location until our attorney can get back to us and we can define it a little bit better.
Do you have an opinion on this, Mr. Foreman?
I agree with Mr. Bornstein. We
Okay.
can do that, definitely.
Ms. Hogan, do you think all that was clear enough to understand the staff direction?
I'd have to get with Mr. Rivera to see what needs stricken in the contract and the resolution itself.
So what you're agreeing with Mr. Bornstein is that one of us makes a motion to approve this resolution, deleting the town-owned land verbiage.
Exactly.
Just say the site-specific one, and then
Right.
could we also say, did you want to see if there's more comments?
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't ready to make that motion. I wanted to make sure I understood what we're, yeah.
So there are
And then-
no additional questions at this time.
So,
So there's a motion. So the motion would be
We'll make it.
to pass resolution number 34-2019, a resolution awarding a contract to D2C Architects for the design of a new public works facility.
Period. Second.
Period.
Period.
Nothing else.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll?
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Romanella?
Yes.
Trustee Kootman?
yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
We forgot to add all the things I asked for too.
Oh, I think he already acknowledged that, no? Or do we need to acknowledge that in a resolution, just to add the title and the name on the signature?
I assumed that, I just assumed that he was fixing that as a typographical.
Okay.
I apologize. I assumed that he was fixing that, as a matter of kind of just a typographical issue.
Okay,
I didn't see that
I
as.
just wanna make sure we
yeah.
all understand to fix it.
I think we all agree with you, too.
Okay, then I'll say yes.
Okay.
Ms.
Mayor
Hogan?
Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
7-0.
That motion passes 7-0. Discussion items. Appointment of an alternative member to the Economic Development Committee. Mr. Foreman.
The Economic Development Committee is made up of members, both board and staff of the Town of Monument and Tri-View Metropolitan District. The current members are myself, Madeline Vanderhook, Mayor Don Wilson, and Trustee Laura Clark for the town of the board, and Tri-View District Manager and Board Directors Mark Melville and James Otis. Tri-View has appointed a Director, Marco Fiorito, as an alternate member, and I believe that we need to appoint someone as an alternate member also, just in case of absences of our existing members.
Do we have any
I
volunteers?
would volunteer as an alternate.
Okay. Do we have
That
any?
makes life easy.
I think that would be great.
Okay, is the board in agreements with appointing Trustee Bornstein as an alternate to the Economic Development Committee?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Foreman, you have your alternate.
Thank you, sir.
Town Attorney selection, Mr. Bishop.
Mr. Mayor, trustees, at the last meeting, I was given guidance to provide you with a pay range and a job description for the town attorney search. As we move forward, I wanted to give you a chance to look over what was given to me by the trustees, so we can provide maybe a little bit more direction as we proceed with the process. So here are the revisions and changes that I will go over with you. Attached to the back of it is the job description itself in its standard form.
Anyone for public record? Thank you.
I received changes or revisions from two trustees, and they centered on the following sections. Number one, the qualifications. If you look on the job description, it currently has 10+ years of municipal law and administrative experience. We have a trustee request that we change this to 15 years of municipal law and administrative experience. There's also mention of an education equivalent. It was asked that we remove that and just keep the municipal law and administrative experience. We had another trustee ask to add the following phrase: the town attorney must be skillful in managing situations requiring diplomacy, fairness, firmness, and sound judgment, and supporting human resources in the town manager is needed in providing coaching to improve staff performance and understanding and applying town policies and procedures. There were 2 points on here where we needed some clarification. There were expectations. There is a phrase, the town attorney reports to and operates under direct guidance from the Board of Trustees and the town manager. The comment for that was the town attorney is appointed position and as such reports directly to the board, not the town manager. The clarification is in italics, whereas the town attorney does absolutely report to the Board of Trustees, but for day-to-day management reports to the town manager for things such as hours, pay, and things like that. The other area of clarification that was asked was in the duties. The listed duties right now provides legal services to the Board of Trustees, town staff, and to major boards and commissions, personally advising the heads of such groups on legal matters. I felt that was fairly straightforward, but I'm open to changing that in any way, shape, or form. Under requests, there was a list of these. Number 1, when it comes to town staff involvement, no opinions, steering, or suggestions from staff on candidate selection. This will be solely for the board to decide. Number 2, thorough vetting of each candidate to include a written verification of confirmed education. Next one, vetting of each candidate to include past and current employment. Accuracy of information on resumes, make sure to confirm. Online and social media research. Last time we employed a survey process. There was a comment not to employ this time. No whiteboard usage during the selection process. No candidate considered with a history of physical assault, theft, domestic violence, charged or not charged, felony of record, bankruptcy, misdemeanor, fired for any previous position, a refusal of rehire, DUI or drug use, or discrimination or accusation charge. Historical record of wins and losses for each candidate in a legal form, a FICO score, and a DISC assessment. Those were all of the requests that were turned in from board members to myself.
Are you looking for a response on email as far as if we all agree with these bullets, or we'd like you to remove A, B, or D?
Absolutely. I would say during this process, and even when we did the process for Mr. Foreman, it's very difficult doing hiring when I'm trying to work with 7 different individuals on the board. So my goal tonight was fairness of information, to deliver all of this to you to look over so that you can give me your comments based on the received changes and everything as we move forward.
And do we have time to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, I think this is wonderful that he did this.
I think a bunch of these are terrible, and I would like to us get back to you in another manner. Just getting it now, I think it needs to be read through better.
Okay.
So,
We added
But it's
discussion
great
item.
that he did the work.
Should this be a discussion item rather than, because I think there are a couple of items which I think makes it a little bit micromanageable, but neither here nor there.
So you're saying time to process
yeah,
would be ideal?
process it and then.
I appreciate this format. I like the full board involvement. That's my pet peeve and what I've been on. So this is good. I would like to, maybe we research it, read it a little bit, and then come back at the next one and continue that discussion.
Absolutely. I can compile the information and present it in the same fashion. If you would like it earlier, I can do that as well, whatever you guys would like.
Okay, so we're in agreements to move this to a discussion item for another.
If we can get it, maybe move it to the next meeting if possible.
Do you want it on the October 7th meeting?
I'm gonna say until we hash it out.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
October 7th, get everyone? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Skate park, Mr. Tharnish.
Okay, my intent is to just have a discussion about some of the facts and things as I can remember going back to when I started here in 2000. Skate park has been a highlight of discussion among the public works staff for at least the last several weeks. It actually occurs every year. One of the things I want to make sure y'all aware, according to the records I have, that skate park was built either in the year 2000 or 2001. The records are just a little sketchy on when that was built. It was originally built and it had a fence completely around it. Fence lasted a couple of years before it kept coming down on various sections. Decision was made just to take it out because it was becoming cost prohibitive to maintain. So the fence came down several years later. The town over the years has added a few features. And again, I'm not familiar enough to know how much extra room and how much some of these features take. But I can remember over the years when I was still a water operator coming up, that were changes that were made. I think some call it grind bar or grind rail, I think was added, and we did some work on the ramps. We did replace things on that ramp associated in that park that were made out of wood, but that was at our insurance company's request to minimize any potential losses, so we don't put any wood-type products in there anymore. Either composite or there's some kind of a metal. The real question lately has been graffiti. As long as I've been here, that has always been an issue. Some years, not as much. Other years, like this year, it's gotten pretty bad at times. The town currently has a 24-hour policy. If we see graffiti, whether it's at the skate park or at a tunnel in Dirty Woman Park that tends to get tagged frequently, the dam spillway gets tagged occasionally. We have a 24-hour policy either removing it or covering it up. We take pictures, we turn those into the police. They're supposed to check their database, and I think they look for gang symbols or whatever the case. We average, and I've gone back quite a few years, we average 400 to 600 per year on an average year, just covering up graffiti at that skate park. This year was an exceptional year. We spent well over $1,000. That typically comes out of our park budget. We don't anticipate, we kind of don't know what to expect. Like I said, some years are pretty good. We can get in and out of there pretty quick, and other years we're there several times a week. This year, because of one particular incident a few weeks ago, the graffiti was pretty graphic. And I can't remember if those actual pictures were sent to every board member or not. We did release some of them through our social media sites, but most of them we couldn't release because of the vulgarity or the profanity. So a decision was made at that point to remove two of the front section walls, the cornices, I guess is what they call them, where most of the graffiti was located. That did a couple things for us. It took away a potential platform for it to reoccur, and it also gave the police much better access to see as they're driving by or from a block away or so. Now you can see straight into that park. Makes it much easier to control. Now most of the graffiti we see is bordering either on the artistic side or it's on the graphic side. Sometimes you get a mix of both. Sometimes it's just what I call creative. You get a little love symbol there going on, and I was a kid once, I can relate. But lately it's gotten a little out of hand. Let's see, this slides. I just want to put this out. The Public Works Department is not the bad guy here. We believe there may be a solution. That is currently in the works in developing stages. Madeline, who's our community relations person, I know has been talking to several of the youngsters. I don't know specifically which ones. And she's looking at trying to put together some kind of an art group that can make maybe some kind of a mural, something that's acceptable to us, that doesn't cause adults in other places to complain or something like that. So we're open to that kind of program. Madeline's kind of leading that up. She'll be coordinating with us. Whether we can put that together this year or not will be depending on the timeline. Next year's budget, Mike has asked us to put $20,000 in the budget for skate park improvements. We may be able to, if we can find a grant that would be appropriate, we may be able to use that money as matching funds. So if we can take that 20 and turn it into 40 to make some bigger improvements, we can do that. But right now, we're just kind of searching for grants that are applicable and checking on timelines, so on and so forth. So that's kind of my discussion, just to give you up to date where we were, how it's been going, and how this year became probably the worst that I've seen it. So if I take any questions from you or
Comments, questions from the board from Tom? Okay, thank you, Mr. Tarnish. Public comments. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to speak? Sir? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson and the Board of Trustees. As you know, there was obscene graffiti on the skate park about a week or two ago, and I skateboard there myself. And while I do like artistic graffiti, I don't like the obscene stuff. It's immature, it's unnecessary. Nobody likes it, except for the people who seem to continue to do it. For some people, it's a second home. Like for my friend Edwin over here, it's his second home. He hangs out there all the time. That's his family. And we love to see the community just build and the positivity around it. We love our police chief and our police force coming and lighting the park up after hours and coming and talking to us and giving us sodas and taking pictures to bridge that gap, that stigma that skaters have about police and police have about skaters. Thank you so much for your time here. We were thinking about proposing a paint day or paint days, where instead of hiring an artist from somewhere within state or something like that, we instead have a community paint day that's positively supervised by police, and they'll come and watch us paint the park with stuff that us as skaters think would be nice to the park rather than something that somebody who doesn't skateboard there would think would be cool. And as it currently stands, it's kind of just this big massive concrete in the middle of Monument. I think it would look a lot better with some color to it.
Hi, thank you for your time, Mayor, trustees. I'm here just to present the logistics of what we're asking for. Specifically, we're looking for a 2-day period for the park to become a permission zone in which the officers who have generously allowed us to take some of their time, we go in and with paint that we supply, we can put up what we would submit on paper somewhat, in that someone would create a design on paper, and then to your guys' discretion, a approved public official can go, yeah, you're okay, go on in, paint it up, or, you know, no, that's not good, we're gonna have to retry that. Specifically in terms of day, we know that this is something that takes a lot of time to work through. We were hoping to possibly get it done within the month or next, because this is something that we're very passionate about doing. Specifically as well, we understand that the funds specifically for repainting the park are largely in question, to which we are willing and able to take that responsibility onto ourselves and have any time that we either see poor graffiti being done or have been done, it is our responsibility within that 24-hour period to paint over it, instead of putting that on you to help kind of lean the funds in a different way. We do want to thank Mike Foreman for getting us that $20,000 subversion, because I have taken many looks over the park. There are a lot of repairs that could be done, and generally we're just kind of looking to you guys to work with us on both this paint night and improving it further.
Thank you, gentlemen. Chief Owens, do you have contact information, or does your staff have contact information?
Yes, sir. I've got several officers working with them on a very regular basis.
Will you get that information to Madeline?
She's got it. She's already met with him.
Okay.
Yep, she's already met with him.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And I haven't had the pleasure, but I will need you guys to sign in so that I can get your names right on the minutes. Thank you.
I'm just curious, have you guys gotten the officers on skateboards yet?
Liability.
I don't think so.
I've got 2. I'll skate with you guys.
Yeah, we'd like to hear more about that at the next meeting.
I think a board member
We
should
want
do this.
pictures, we want pictures.
I love it. I still get on.
Thank
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys.
I'm not afraid.
Any additional comments from the public? Ms. Chapman?
Good evening, Mayor, trustees, and staff.
Here to share two different things with you, wanting to raise awareness for the month of September. September is a Hunger Action Month, so coming down from national chain of Feeding America to regional at Care and Share Food Bank down to local at Tri-Lakes Cares, we are raising awareness during the month of September by wearing orange and our hunger awareness shirts. Letting folks know that hunger is something that happens year-round. Although we are approaching the season of giving, there's not necessarily a season of need. People are hungry year-round, day-round, around the clock, and so September is noted as Hunger Awareness Month, so I just wanted to share that information with you. Also, I wanted to share with you a client who is a recipient of our services that was benefiting from allocation of funds that came to us during this last fiscal year from the town of Monument. Some of that funding was allocated to transportation assistance or car repair. It's not an area that we have a lot of funding sources for. Everyone really wants to feed people or clothe people, but not many people think about how they're going to get around. And in our community with no public transportation, that's very important for us. So we chose to allocate some of the money that was given to us through the town for car repair. So this particular client came through and wrote a very nice email about their services at a local shop here that was able to support them. They said they only drove their car home from the shop 1 mile, but what a difference. I am so very grateful for the mechanics, more so for you and for Tri-Lakes Cares and the funders that made this possible, in this case, which is the town of Monument. The car was getting worse by the day, and I don't know how much longer it would have lasted. Thank you and your organization, and you have my heartfelt gratitude and blessing. So to keep people employed, to keep them getting to their source of income so that they can continue to provide for their family, it's important that we keep their transportation system available. And without public system, we have to rely on their individual vehicles. And so sometimes when families are forced to make decisions about putting food on the table or roof over their head or paying for preventative maintenance on their car, that preventative maintenance gets put to the side and then major repairs are needed. And so we try to be able to step in. So because of the funding that you supported us with this past year, we were able to make impact on the clients' lives. I had our case manager here earlier, but being that she's an hourly employee, I sent her home since this meeting was going way too long, and I'm trying to be fiscally responsible of our funds, but she wanted to deliver that message herself, and since I'm exempt, I decided to stay. So I just wanted to say thank you for your time, continued support, and allowing us to change lives and make Monument a better place for our community members.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move to board authorizations. Purchasing policy revisions. Is the board okay with that on the 7th?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm okay with everything.
Newtown logo discussion, I would like to move to a later meeting. There's no time sensitivity
No rush.
to it.
None whatsoever.
Yeah, leave the logo alone.
Presentation of award from Tri-Lakes Cares to the town of Monument, October 7th. Any qualms with that?
That's fine.
Recognition of Stories of Monument and Monument's 140th. Good.
Mm-hmm.
National Community Planning Month, that's for October 21st. And the change of venue or cancellation for November 4th due to the election and them using this room. In the past, we have canceled. Do we have anything pressing for that meeting at this time?
Jennifer, I asked her in staff meeting and she said, no, we don't, and I don't think any other staff members informed me that we do.
Would the board like to cancel that meeting?
It's budget season, so as long as we're.
Yeah, because we'll
I was
have
gonna
a
say,
budget.
as long as we're
yeah.
making it up with workshops somewhere.
We are.
Right.
Yeah, we will be.
Okay, so the November 4th meeting will be canceled at this time. Was there any other board authorization items?
I would say, do we want clarification on anything at this point with the land, or do we want to wait regarding the 2A purchase of that specific plot of land.
We might should wait on the attorney.
Yeah, we need.
Well, that's what I'm saying, or direction
Do you have-
to the attorney.
I was actually just thinking about that as we were
Do
moving
you have
through.
clear direction on what?
I'll tell you what I understand my direction to be is essentially to work with Tom Tharnish to find out essentially what stage we are in terms of using that site for a well, and kind of what those plans are, because I think that's part of the component of the analysis, and then at that point comparing and then looking at the two-way funding restrictions, and then offering an opinion as to whether the site can be used jointly with the well, or if in the absence of a well, can two-way funds be used to basically finance the site for only a public works facility.
I would say pair that with the specific purchase of that and the criteria that was used to purchase that. So rather than broadly saying, if we do this, I would like a professional review on the criteria that was used to purchase that specific piece of land.
I think,
You understand what I'm
just
saying?
verifying that we purchased that out of 2A funds.
Yes.
And what that means.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what the
That's
result of
part
that
of
is,
the
or how to
analysis, yes.
undo it,
Gentlemen.
or what needs to be done.
Meaning that it has to be used for 2A funds and what the stipulations are with that.
Yeah, that would be, yes, so I would basically determine what the restrictions are on two-way funds are, whether that was met, whether that would be met in the absence of a well or the presence of a well.
So I think what we'd like to hear is you're authorizing us to bring it to the 7th. If we can't get it done by then, we'll bring it to the 21st.
Correct.
Okay?
7th would be great. If we could.
You know, Trustee Koopman, as I recall back then, that was, we did that property as a building. It was for water, for the facility was after the fact.
I'm not sure that's.
Yeah, I'm thinking back on it, it was originally.
I know there was discussion of the joint.
It came after the fact and the purchase.
Would you want to check the minutes as part of that as well?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Town manager report?
Okay, what I've submitted to y'all, and hopefully you've been able to review this entire document, is my biannual report. That's required in my contract, and so I wanted to make sure that y'all got that and had time to review that, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions from
Very slow reading.
Trustee Park?
I think you did a phenomenal job on that report. I am thrilled to see all the changes in the finance department. I think that was just invaluable. I appreciate your hard work, and I thank you for working so tirelessly and professionally on the part of this town. Thank you.
I appreciate that, but all the efforts were done by staff. I mean, they did an incredible job on this, putting this together, but, you know, all the work and all the credit really needs to go to them.
Well, I thank all the staff too, but I also want to thank you as well.
You bet.
I would like to thank the entire staff.
Any questions in regards to the town manager report?
No.
Okay. Board of Trustee comments? Trustee Koopman?
Just want to give a quick public kudos to those kids for sitting through this entire meeting. I mean, seriously, they left, but yes, absolutely. I mean, to sit through what they sat through tonight, to voice their concern and their appreciation for what they do have, you know, it's tough. You got kids that do things, and you got other kids that pay the price for what, you know, probably just a few do, and that's the sad part about it. And kudos to the interaction with our police department. Just seeing your interaction with those kids, very cool, very positive. Something that hasn't always been present here in Monument, being a kid that grew up in this area. So keep it up. Great job.
If I could make a comment on that, the two kids that spoke today were there immediately, and they did not have a negative word to say about anything we were doing. They just had positive comments, and they had ideas. And that was really, for kids that age to come up and start having these kind of ideas, that's amazing for our community.
Love it.
Any additional Board of Trustee comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Yeah, I moved to executive session.
You don't want friends.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of time. It's gonna have to be in the afternoon, because I am just, I am through it.
Stayed later.
I'm booked all day. We're gonna do it October 7th. Yeah, I didn't get back with you, I apologize. 3 o'clock is all I got. Yeah, 3 o'clock.